I got 6 o'clock. I got 6:02.
1 minute.
So we are ready to go. Good evening, everyone. I call the meeting of the Select Board to order. This meeting of the Hopkinton Select Board is being held both in person and remotely using the video conference platform Zoom. If all members are in the meeting room, and they are, all members participating in the meeting are present in the meeting room. The public has the option of attending in person here at Town Hall or via Zoom using the link posted in this meeting's agenda. This meeting is being recorded. Thank you. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Elaine, for public forum, if someone is remote, how does that work?
So Amy has Zoom on her laptop, and she can tell if someone has a raised hand.
Okay.
And then we'll motion to the host.
So they would raise their hand on Zoom?
Yes.
And then we will recognize them. Okay, great. All right, so with that, we'll begin with item number 2, public forum. Residents are invited to share ideas, opinions, or ask questions regarding their town government. Mr. Weissmerl.
Thank you. Ken Weissmantle, 145 Ash Street. Planning for the July 4th Horribles Parade is continuing. The parade will start as per tradition at 12 noon on July 4th. The parade theme this year is America the Beautiful. We ask that floats and parade participants assemble around the town common at 11:30 a.m. when the judging will start. Judges from the HRTC, HCAM, and Hop News have been chosen. Rules are simple for the parade. Any person, family, neighborhood, or organization can be in the parade. 2, no hate speech will be permitted. 3, no obscenities will be allowed. 4, no water balloons or water hoses will be allowed in the parade. And spectators are requested not to use water balloons or hoses as people have been hurt and some equipment has been damaged in the past with some heavy water balloons. I've talked to the fire chief and the police chief regarding the parade. They've expressed their support. I was a little surprised that the parade permit approval was not on the agenda for tonight. I've not received any questions. The application was an updated version of what has been previously approved by this board in years past before COVID. We look forward to seeing everyone on July 4th and celebrating our country and our town. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else for public forum, public comment?
Can I comment on that?
Hang on one sec. Yes, sir.
Timothy Boyven, 41 Pinecrest Village. At the end of the previous select board meeting, I was disheartened that none of the board members asked that a future agenda item be added to address the release of the survivor's personal identifying information, as well as that of her young children following the Lauderdale hearing for Sergeant Timothy Brennan. It's now been 137 days since the Hopkinton Police Department, at the direction of Chief Joseph Bennett, released a transcript of Sergeant Brenner's interview. It's been 134 days since that transcript was taken down, but only after it was published over 2 days by multiple media outlets, as well as shared through Select Board member Amy Ritterbusch's social media accounts to thousands of more people. It's been 143 days since then Select Board Chair Muriel Kramer, speaking on behalf of the entire Select Board and the town government, said, and I again quote, "Doing the work and making sure this never happens again is foremost on our minds, as well as rightly holding ourselves and others accountable as needed in meaningful ways, including but not limited to correcting processes and requiring any necessary or relevant training or retraining." It has been 46 days since the first Assistant District Attorney of the Northwestern District identified several parties associated with town government as being negligent in protecting this mother's identity as required by state law, and urged the town and council to implement precautionary measures to ensure it never happens again. I applaud the Select Board for taking the initiative, finally, to launch an investigation of the processes related to Sergeant Brennan's Loudermill hearing. I encourage the Select Board to also ensure this review specifically includes how the release of the survivor's PII happened. And again, I ask, who has been held accountable for this egregious breach of the survivor's trust, as the Select Board promised in its statement to the survivor 143 days ago in January? Thank you.
Thank you.
There's one person on Zoom if they're...
Anybody else in the, I'm sorry. Anybody else in the audience? Seeing none. Mrs. Ritterbusch.
Also, should I do, are you on the Zoom? Or you've got your hand raised? So if Ben could light it up.
No,
And then Peter Thomas.
Okay. Mr. Mann, would you like to speak?
no, actually, I raised my hand because I couldn't join the panel.
Got it. Okay. It happens.
Good evening, members of the Select Board. On Tuesday, May 21st, Peter Thomas, 215 Pond Street. On Tuesday, May 21st, I listened to the Select Board receive an update from HR Director Jessica Lorenz on the Deputy Fire Chief hiring process. Ms. Lorenz was joined by Fire Chief Gary Dougherty Jr., and the pair took turns answering questions about the consultant that the town has hired to engage the Deputy Fire Chief discussion. Notably, through an interchange with Mr. Clark, Chief Dougherty stated that approximately $10,000 that has been allocated to support this process will come from the department's operating budget, and Chief Dougherty further disclosed that, in his opinion, the money would be better used for equipment and training. I want to say that I am confused by the board's decision to weigh in on this process at all. Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 48, Section 42 is the Strong Chief Statute, and it specifically grants authority and autonomy to the fire chief in towns like ours. Under this statute, the Strong Fire Chief has the full and absolute authority over the administration of the fire department, and that includes the ability to appoint and remove officers, firefighters, rules, regulations, et cetera, and to manage the deputy chief. Specifically, the GL says that the chief shall appoint a deputy chief and such officers and firemen as he thinks necessary. So because the Select Board has no legal authority over this process, I further urge you to withdraw from the process and allow Chief Dougherty to appoint his own team as he is entitled to do under law. I have sent this in a letter to you as well. I was disappointed not to see it in the agenda packet tonight, because typically letters to the Select Board, correspondence to the Select Board are included. I just wanted, because I didn't see it, I thought it was important to read it into the record as well. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else? If you would come to the microphone, please.
Michael Riley, 201 West Main Street. Thank you for giving me time. I know this is in light of seeing the Officer Brennan going to look at the Loudermill hearing again. I just hope that those who were on the board at the time, 3 out of the 5 members, will just really look deep into what was presented and possibly reconsider the decisions it made, how it affects the individual, how it affects the town. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, with that, we'll move to item 3, which is the consent agenda. There are 1, 2, 3 items on the consent agenda. The first is some minutes from April 16th, 24, April 30th, 24, and May 6th, 24. The second are 2 parade permits for USA Track and Field New England Long Distance Running Committee request and the Poly Arts Committee. The first one for the running distance committee request is, July 21 from 9 to 12 p.m. And for Poly Arts, the parade request is for, parade permit is for September 7th from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. for Poly Arts. And then there's the appointment of 2 constables, Barry Sims and Scott Gonfrade, as constables in the town with a term to expire June 30th, 2027. Would anyone like to break anything out on the consent agenda? All good? I'm sorry?
It looks good.
All good? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to approve this consent agenda as submitted in the agenda and board packet.
So moved.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous, all set. Great. Item number 4. This is always a fun one because the dollars are huge, but the dollars have already been spent. We are not spending the money tonight. This is an approval of renewed and new municipal bond anticipation notes. Elaine, you want to just give us a quick overview of this, please?
Sure. CFO Kyla Lapierre is here, and CFO Kyla Lapierre is here to address the board regarding the bond anticipation notes, and Treasurer Charles Paquette should be on Zoom as well.
Okay.
So,
The memo is from CJ, so he's online too.
yes, yes.
He's live in that.
He's online.
So if you would like to come up.
Great, come on up, please join us.
So as per their memo, they'll talk about renewing some bond anticipation notes that have been previously issued and issuing new bans for new projects voted at various town meetings. So it's there on Zoom.
Hello.
Who would like to go first? Yeah, please, go ahead.
I can go.
Yep, great.
Sorry, I'm not in person. I'm in a training this week, so virtual it is. So just, we're quickly running through. So we had a $4.8 million rollover from last year. We did include the projects that that 4.8 are from. Hayden Road Water Main, the Main Street Corridor Project, wastewater management, an air handling unit replacement for the school, and then the Fruit Street field replacement. So those are being basically rolled over again from last year. This is the last year they can be rolled. So next year they will have to become permanent bonds. And then we're adding a few new projects to that. So new spending from this year. Elmwood, well, formerly Elmwood, now it's Charleswood. So that's spending that they've spent so far, plus additional, which is forecasted for the next 6 months. So we try to keep our borrowing to 1 year. So we're forecasting for the future, kind of estimating what they're going to be spending on that project. The next one is Chestnut Street sidewalks, the Hopkinton School HVAC system. It's another HVAC upgrade. Hopkins expansion, roadway paving, that's Fruit Street and cemeteries, the fire engine replacement, and Marathon School updates. So for a total of the $17,018,000. So we worked really hard with our partners at UFOSI, which is part of Unibank, to get this done. Everything went really well. We accepted a bid from Jeffries LLC in New York. So there's a bidding process with bonds and bans. Basically, the lowest interest rate and the highest, they kind of give us a premium for the bond. Between those two items, we decide who's the best bidder is, and then we accept their offer. So this year, the coupon rate is 4.55%. 4.5%. With a premium of $147,549 for a net interest cost of 3.63%. So basically what that number is calculating is the 4.5% minus the premium they're giving us of $147,000 to get the 3.63%, which is really good, considering what the markets are doing right now. So we're happy with that rate. It is actually a little bit lower than last year. Last year was 3.884 after the premium. So we're happy with that rate.
We did go through an interview process with S&P prior to issuing the ban to make sure that they understood what was happening in the town and to have them evaluate us, and they did evaluate us at the highest rating at the current time.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Mr. Mayor, why don't we start with you, please?
Thank you. Through the chair, one question I have, it's great, we found a better rate than last year, so that's encouraging. One thing I was thinking, looking at the projection of the rates, we might be better off borrowing as little as possible in anticipation that the rates might come out better next year. But of course, we have to borrow what we have to borrow. Now, given that scenario, do you think, and have you done any analysis that we would need to borrow all 17 million, or some of it can wait another year?
The only project that we have a forecast for is the Charles Wood School. Everything else has been expended to date so far, and we have not borrowed for anything that was just passed in the ATM of May 2024. So we're being very careful what we're borrowing at any given time, just for that purpose.
Okay, so this is... Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Kyla, if I remember correctly, I think we're only forecasting for Elmwood. I think we're borrowing into addition of what they've spent.
Correct.
I believe it's only $2 million. I don't think it was significant.
Okay, thank you.
What's that?
Nothing further, yeah.
Mary Jo.
I think it's pretty clear, and I love this, that you have the annual town meetings here and what's rolled over, and it's pretty self-explanatory, actually. Thank you.
Thank you.
No additional comments.
Okay. Amy?
No comments. It's, I appreciate the information. It helps helpful for the public, I think. Thank you.
So I'll ask a couple of questions. I think I know the answers, but I'd like to ask the questions so everyone in town that's paying attention can listen and hear. This is in line with our current bond rating. Yes. And our current bond rating is?
AAA.
AAA. So our bond rating's a AAA. So we talked a lot about this the last couple of months. We want to make sure we maintain AAA because our interest rates are crazy low compared to the rest of the world if we maintain that AAA. So there's a big if in that statement. And this is only a one-time per year process. Can we not come back if we need some more money like down the road a little bit?
We can. We can go back and borrow at any time. The preference, because we get the best rate, if we do it once a year.
Got it. The bigger than that, better the deal. Okay. Yes.
It also saves the town money if we borrow once a year instead of borrowing a few times a year. So because every time we have to get rated by S&P, that's a cost we have to pay, and so it just makes more financial sense to borrow once a year.
And my last question, again, it's somewhat obvious, but still I think good to ask. All this money, this $17 million, has all been pre-approved in Hopkinton by town meeting and our process in years prior, or this past year, I guess. 23.
Yes, and all the articles are listed on the sheet.
Right. Great. Thank you. Excellent. Any other questions or comments from the board? And Elaine, I have something for this, correct?
There's a lengthy motion.
Yeah. Okay. That is a lengthy motion. How's your reading tonight, Joe? So the chair will entertain a motion to...
We hereby determine, in accordance with General Law, Chapter 70B, that the cost to design, construct, and furnish the new Elmwood Elementary School, authorized by vote of the town, passed on November 13th, 2023, Article 1, being financed with proceeds of a portion of the notes defined below, together with all other bonds and notes of the town previously issued to pay costs of this project, does not exceed the portion of the total cost of the project that is not being paid by the school facilities grant, and we hereby approve the issuance of notes and bonds to finance this project under General Law, Chapter 70B.
But I think
Do I go through all of them?
I think you have to continue on down.
Okay. You're really putting it to me.
I am. Welcome.
Voted to approve the sale of $17,018,434, 4.5% general obligation bond anticipation notes of the town dated June 14th, 2024, and payable June 13th, 2025, to Jeffries LLC at par and accrued interest, if any, plus a premium of $147,549.82. Further voted that in connection with the marketing and sale of the notes, the preparation and distribution of a notice of sale and preliminary official statement dated May 22nd, 2024, and a final official statement dated May 29th, 2024, each in such form as may be approved by the town treasurer, be and hereby are ratified, confirmed, approved, and adopted. Further voted that the town treasurer and the select board be and hereby are authorized to execute and deliver a significant events disclosure undertaking in compliance with SEC Rule 15C 2-12 in such form as may be approved by bond counsel to the town, which undertaking shall be incorporated by reference in the notes for the benefit of the holders of the notes from time to time. Further voted that we authorize and direct the town treasurer to establish post-issuance federal tax compliance procedures and continuing disclosure procedures in such forms as the town treasurer and bond counsel deem sufficient, or if such procedures are currently in place, to review and update said procedures in order to monitor and maintain the tax exempt status of the notes and to comply with relevant security laws. Further voted that any certificates or documents relating to the notes, collectively the documents, may be executed in several counterparts, each of which shall be regarded as an original, and all of which shall constitute one and the same document. Delivery of an executed counterpart of a signature page to a document by electronic mail, in a PDF file, or by other electronic transmission shall be as effective as delivery of a manually executed counterpart signature page to such document, and electronic signatures on any of the documents shall be deemed original signatures for the purposes of the documents and all matters relating thereto, having the same legal effect as original signatures. Further voted that each member of the select board, the town clerk, and the town treasurer be and hereby are authorized to take any and all such actions and execute and deliver such certificates, receipts, or other documents as may be determined by them, or any of them to be necessary or convenient to carry into effect the provisions of the foregoing votes. I further certify that the votes were taken at a meeting open to the public, that no vote was taken by secret ballot, that a notice stating the place, date, time, and agenda for the meeting, which agenda included the adoption of the above votes, was filled with the town clerk, and a copy thereof posted in a manner conspicuously visible to the public at all hours in or on the municipal building that the office of the town clerk is located, or if applicable, in accordance with an alternative method of notice prescribed or approved by the Attorney General as set forth in 940 CMR 29.03 2B, at least 48 hours, not including Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays, prior to the time of the meeting, and remained so posted at the time of the meeting that no deliberations or decisions in connection with the sale of the notes were taken in executive session, all in accordance with General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18 to 25, as amended.
Second.
Thank goodness we have a second on that one. Okay, does anybody have any questions, comments on the motion on the table? Thank you, Joe. Thank you all for your patience. All good? Okay, the chair will call the vote now. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Great, all set. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 5, process update, Timothy Brennan matter. The select board will hear a process update from town council representatives on the matter of former police officer Timothy Brennan. Good evening. If you could state your name for the audience, please.
Good evening. I'm Donna Brewer from Harrington Heap, Town Council's office.
Hi, Donna. Welcome. Thank you for coming out this evening. We had a special town meeting on May 7th, 2024. There was an article put before special town meeting. Did I say special town meeting a minute ago? There was an article put before special town meeting that evening specific to reinstating Officer Brennan. The town meeting vote was 2-1 in favor in terms of directing or suggesting or guiding the select board to take the matter up. There is other information, I suspect, that the town council is going to share with us about the process. So let's begin with that, and we'll go from there, please.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. So the process is, after the termination decision was made, the council, the Labor Council, as well as the Union Council, discussed what the steps are for a grievance, because a grievance was filed shortly after that vote. There are steps under the collective bargaining agreement for grievances to be addressed, And the two councils agreed that they would skip the first 3 steps, given the issue involved, and go straight to step 4, which is to go to arbitration. The information that I have, the last information I have from Labor Council, is that he has been waiting for names of arbitrators from Union Council so that the 2 councils can agree on an arbitrator and go forward with arbitration.
Great. Thank you very much. Why don't we start with the board? Mrs. Ritterbusch, any questions?
I guess I'm going to reiterate what Irfan said at town meeting, just for everyone, but there was a lot of incorrect information presented at town meeting, and I know Irfan asked about it, but just to clarify with council, am I correct that we cannot discuss publicly any negotiations, personnel or disciplinary matters that were discussed in executive session because we're waiting on the arbitration?
Correct.
Anything else?
So if the select board wanted to get involved here, what is possible while something's in arbitration? Because that seems like it's happening at a higher, like a state level potentially, but locally, if the select board chose to do something, what would that look like?
So just to correct a little bit, it doesn't happen at the state level. Okay. It is indeed just still local in the sense it's between the local union and the local labor council, but they have a mediator, or sorry, I keep saying mediator. It's an arbitrator who is connected to the state board that will decide whether the action taken by the select board was the appropriate action, or if that arbitrator can order a different outcome. While that is going on, there are things that you can still do. You could go ahead and vote to reinstate him, and that would moot out the arbitration. You can also continue negotiations with him through his counsel for some other kind of resolution.
One other question, like typically how long do these types of arbitrations last?
The arbitration itself won't last all that long. It's just a matter of getting it scheduled. That will depend on who the arbitrator is who is chosen. And the process is actually going more slowly than it usually does. And the vote to terminate was in February, and we still don't have names back from Union Council for potential arbitrators.
So the normal process though, just because I'm very new to that, what does that typically look like?
You mean once an arbitrator is chosen?
Yeah, just the whole process in general, from choosing the arbitrator to, from then the next steps of actually working with counsel.
Okay, so typically what happens with arbitration is that the parties will submit memoranda to the arbitrator and then have usually a multi-day hearing process with witnesses who are sworn in, and evidence is presented to the arbitrator, and then the arbitrator takes that information. In a way, it's sort of like a private trial. The arbitrator takes that information into account, takes it under advisement, and issues a decision at some point. Either side can then appeal that to court, but typically arbitration decisions are very, very difficult to overturn.
And just to clarify, typically I know it's none of these things are the same, but like how long? Months? Beyond that?
It's months. It would be done in less than a year.
Okay.
Anything else?
Typically, like what are some of the outcomes that are possible through arbitration that you've seen in these types of scenarios?
So Labor Council has more of the experience on that than I do, but in my experience and from knowing what happens with these things, the arbitration can go either to totally affirming the decision of the select board and he would remain terminated. He can be reinstated, and there can be some damages that would be awarded, not just back pay, but perhaps some other monetary damages as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good.
There you go.
I don't have any questions. I feel that we really have to abide whatever arbitration decides.
I should say, Mr. Clark, I forgot that while it could be reinstatement, it could be reinstatement with some kind of penalty imposed on him. That is, some kind of term of suspension.
Okay. Thank you.
All set? Mr. Mann.
Yeah, not much. Just a couple of clarifying questions. So obviously, there's a lot of discussion that happened, and in town meeting, we got a vote. I was wondering, given some of the information that we discussed and experienced through confidential executive sessions as well as other confidentiality, do you think there are more information that the town council can share to the residents and this board publicly? And if so, would you be able to organize that in an upcoming session? It's a loaded
Nothing's
question.
coming to mind. I could certainly think about that a little bit more and think about what perhaps has been included in some of the investigations, that the reports of which have already been released. And so maybe there's something more that I can put into a memoranda for the board and for the public that would be information that would not disclose any confidential information.
Sure. And the last one is, can you elaborate a little bit, what is the qualification and role of the arbitrator in this scenario?
The arbitrator who will be chosen will be somebody who is experienced in reviewing decisions about police officers and their discipline, suspension, or termination. I'm certain that that is the type of person that they're looking for.
Thank you. And the last one is, for this board, since we have new members, what would be the best way to share the historical information and sequence of discussions with them if you're not able to share more publicly?
You can share with the new board members anything that is confidential from the prior board sessions and reports.
In executive session.
In executive session.
Or you can just go to Elaine's office and read them there.
Oh, one-on-one.
You don't have to do that in a session if you don't want to, but certainly we could have an executive session and go into more detail and disclose the confidential information to you.
Yeah, that's pretty much. And last one is, do you see any risk of bringing it back to the select board before the arbitration is done? Any risk for the town legally or financially?
Yes, I would think that it would be likely that the town would be hit with a lawsuit.
Thank you.
What's that? You mentioned a minute ago that the arbitration is a private hearing of sorts. So this is a private matter. It's not a public meeting where when this arbitration would take place. Is that
correct?
So is it termed an executive session, or is just termed an arbitration private session? Or
private arbitration session, the board would not attend. It would be just attended by the arbitrator, the counsel for both sides, the witnesses, the defendants, some representative for the defendant, and of course, Sergeant Brennan could also be present.
okay. You mentioned a second ago that there would be a risk to the town if we were to intervene prior to the arbitration being wrapped up. What would happen after the arbitration takes place and is wrapped up, and then the town would intervene? Same level of risk, or could we then come in after the fact if we didn't like what was going on, or how does that work?
The board can come in at any time and take unilateral action if your action is going to be to reinstate him. If you're talking about something else, some kind of reinstatement with a suspension or some other kind of agreement or resolution, I suspect that is going to require cooperation by Sergeant Brennan and his attorney to reach some kind of resolution that would not result in a lawsuit.
Okay. All right. Any other questions, comments concerning this agenda item?
I have one more.
Sure.
As we know from the Loudermill hearing, I wanted to ask about the post-commission. So the post-commission sent a letter, which was in the Loudermill hearing packet, that there was a preliminary investigation being launched against Sergeant Brennan. And on the post-commission website that they update monthly, he's still listed as not certified. So what would happen if we were to reinstate him? Can we have a police officer that's not certified?
No. If he is not certified by post to serve as a police officer, we cannot hire him as a police officer.
And how long will we know before the post-commission might make a decision on that?
You know, it's so brand new, and it's taken them so long to get up to speed on anything. I really can't predict when they're going to issue a decision.
That's it? Everybody good? Mrs. Lazarus, anything from your vantage point?
No.
Okay. So it would seem that until we have an update, whether it be an executive session or one-on-ones with Ms. Lazarus and I and yourself and Elaine, that's one piece of the puzzle we probably need to check off. And then anything else would probably happen in an executive session with the full board. So I think for right now, it probably makes sense to table this discussion. Everybody good?
Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate your time.
Sure, no problem.
Thanks a lot. Okay, with that, let's move on to item 6, the Farmers Market license, Hopkinton Farmers Market, Broken Creek Vineyard has a request in for a license. This is not a public hearing. We do have a public hearing at 7, and 2 of them, one we're going to postpone, but we've got a little time here. Okay, if we have the proponent here, yes?
Or perhaps on Zoom?
Or perhaps on Zoom?
Do we know the name? There's no one with a hand raised.
I have a question that Elaine might be able to answer. This is not the same vineyard that we had at the last meeting?
It's a different one. It's a different one.
So, okay.
I think it's the third one now.
That
It's
means
the third of 3 we were expecting.
3.
Common's going to be
Okay.
rocking.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope it's not rocking, but it's going to be quite the festive occasion over there. So Elaine, what is our practice if we don't have the proponent here?
Well, it's a complete application. There are no outstanding permitting team comments, and it's much like the other 2 that the board has already approved, where someone would be selling small samples for tasting on the common, and they'd buy the products to go.
What is your recommendation then?
I would recommend approval.
Okay. So the town manager is recommending approval. Why don't we start with Mrs. Ritterbusch and see if we have any thoughts on moving forward?
I don't have any questions. We've done this before, and everything seems to be in order, so I have no objections.
Mr. Clark?
No questions.
We're good? Mr. Manning?
I think it's pretty straightforward, no questions.
Okay. Ms. LaFreniere here.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, and I think we do have to approve this one. I would like to make a stipulation. We had the map of the common and the different areas for different things, and one area was set aside for this sort of thing. And there's just so many booths. And I just would like to propose that once that area is full, then it is set aside for alcohol and things like that. So,
Want to make the motion?
that we that we keep it to that area, that we don't give any more licenses once that area is full.
Will this fit in that area?
That's a motion.
Okay. So with that, you want to make the motion?
Okay. I move to approve Massachusetts General Law 138, Section 15F Farmers Market License to SKAFF Vineyard and Winery, Broken Creek Vineyard, to sell wine at the Hopkinton Farmers Market on Sunday, June 9th through October 13th of 2024.
Is there a second?
Second?
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All set. Okay. Thank you for reading that. Okay, actually, we are right on time. So next up, it's my understanding that we've had for some time on our future agenda item list a discussion about economic development in the community, perhaps putting together some form of economic development team of sorts. I don't pretend to know all the different discussions that have taken place over the last several months, or maybe there weren't as many as we had thought we were going to have, but what have you. Let's have one this evening. I know that Mr. Mann's worked hard on this over a period of time, so I thought he could lead us through this discussion if that's okay with you.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a short presentation, so I'll initiate that, if I may. I am sharing it. I don't know if it's visible.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, everyone. I think this is obviously something that has been in our mind and in my mind for quite some time, which is how can we increase and improve our economic activity in the town? And the context is pretty straightforward at this time. With growth in town, we are observing our budget going over 120 million, and it needs significant, and we need significant growth in our revenue stream to keep up with the growth, inflation, contractual obligations, all those good stuff. Now, we already have seen and discussed in many budget sessions that we are, at this time, kind of falling behind in terms of our revenue and expenses, and forecasted to be short by 2 to 5 million in the coming years if the current trend continues as is. And based on the capital projects that we have in line, we have approved quite a few important and good ones for school and quite a few other for trucks and whatnot, but there are others in the queue that will, if goes approved, generate significant tax increase, and we're already seeing it in our tax base. And there's more infrastructure need looming as well. So given that context, and if we look at our budget revenue distribution, as of the latest one, we are seeing about 82% of our revenue coming from residential, and only 7% from industrial property, 3% from commercial, and 8% from taxable business property. So in that context, I had initiated the conversation about economic development, and I was part of the growth study committee. Amy was there too, and we had a good bunch of experts and enthusiastic volunteers who did a study and research and came up with certain proposals. And kind of based on that, we had hired an economic development officer partially. We had Julia Chun, who has 3 portfolios essentially, sustainability, equity, and economic development. And to support that position, I had worked with State Representative James DeRosa and was able to acquire about 60,000 as grant, which supported that initial small part-time economic development office. But obviously, it's not sufficient, and given the opportunity and the challenges that we have and the need that we have, we need to do more. So looking at the opportunities, and these are all known, but I just wanted to baseline for everyone's awareness. We are near completion of downtown corridor, which can open up a new restaurant scene, new small business corridor, as well as a vibrant downtown. We have South Street, where our major company, EMC, now Dell EMC, being out of state now, is shrinking its footprint. And we have almost 40% space available, but sufficient resources, both utility-wise and space-wise, for new business. And even half of those, if utilized, can generate enough revenue to cover the budget gap that we are talking about. And in the meantime, proudly so, and thanks to everyone's work, including our Chamber of Commerce and the leadership, we have, and the town administration, we have achieved platinum status by Mass Bio. And we have happy and expanding biotech scene with the companies that we have. And obviously, we have an active and engaged Chamber of Commerce and a vibrant town-friendly business community. And town-friendly is also a key item on this because we have a special character for our town. We love the natural scene, and we want to focus on economic development that goes well with our town character and the vibe. So why now is, I think I have covered enough on this, but it's now clear that we need a comprehensive, more comprehensive economic development office and economic development plan, strategy, and oversight. And Select Board, obviously we have a lot on our plate, and we do support all these, or have been, and but just don't have enough traction and laser beam focus that we need to make it, to speed it up and keep it going in the right direction and at the right pace. So essentially, we need aggressive outreach for new town character-friendly business, and we need more relationship development as well with the state and federal agencies and other towns for grant opportunities and collaboration. And only a full-fledged economic development office, like some of our neighboring towns and some of the successful towns in terms of economic development, have achieved that through such office. And we do need an advisory council working in collaboration with chambers to keep the right focus, help build the right strategy, and work with everyone to resonate town residents' voice, as well as focus on the right strategy for economic development. So with that context, I'm proposing that we have more focus on economic development, have expansion, or have a full-blown economic development office, full-time official, and have an economic development council to support and oversee and help build the strategy for and guide this office. So the purpose would be, again, I'll probably repeat quite a few things that I mentioned, that to promote sustainable economic growth, enhance local business, create job opportunities, and improve the overall economic well-being of the community. And the council can serve as the collaborative platform among stakeholders and help strategize, plan, and implement initiatives for the economic vitality. And the mission would be, obviously, to foster a vibrant and resilient local economy and addressing the challenges, coordinating efforts, and increase our tax revenue from the commercial and industrial sources, and overall enhance the quality of the life of the residents. So with that, I have identified 7 key functional areas that the Advisory Council can focus on. And again, these are all super draft, a point of discussion, and I'm hoping with my colleagues and everyone's feedback, we can firm it up and add more or modify as needed. So obviously, the key functions I'm looking at, first one is strategic planning and goal setting, as I discussed. Attracting business and retaining business. So essentially working closely with the business community, looking at their challenges, helping them out, and encouraging new business, and also reaching out new business outside the town. And this reach is where I think we are lagging tremendously, and which can open up a lot of new opportunities. Number 3 is our infrastructure and real estate development. This is something the council can research, work with ZAC, work with planning board and others, and bring in some best practices to encourage business or support business. Workforce development and education, there are plenty of resources statewide and also federal level that we can tap into, gain some grants. And since we are focused, or historically, and from our chambers and others, we are also looking at biotechs. There are opportunities to promote more training on that sector so we can build up more talents in the town or in the vicinity to attract more companies in this area. Then tourism, cultural enhancement. We already see a lot of activities through HCA and bringing in a lot of people and cultural activities. It can only go more, and looking forward to the 26.2 initiatives for the Marathon Museum and the like. Regulatory streamlining and advocacy, that's always important for economic development. There are a lot of state aids, federal aids or infrastructure and other funds that are available, but we do need to streamline and make sure we have the focus, the relationship, and the right strategy to garner more support from the regulatory bodies and, as necessary, advocate for regulations. And finally, community engagement and outreach. This is super important because we are a small town and we always want to make sure we hear the voices of the residents, and anything we do on the business front, we don't want to become a commercial city like at all. So anything we do, we want to make sure it's in line with our sustainable goals, it's in line with our residents' expectation for the character, the personality of the town. So constant communication and outreach and garnering the feedback is going to be very critical. So all these, we can have the advisory committee kind of take that headache from us and advise us based on these functions, how to move forward and guide the Economic Development Office that we are that I'm proposing. Then I can talk a little bit about the council composition. This is pretty standard what we do with most of our committees, but since this is an economic development, we definitely want, and I think with the very enthusiastic and wonderful, active Chamber of Commerce, we want them in the forefront of this to be partner with the town. And town government, of course, town manager, deputy, and the economic development officer would be part of it. Then we would also look for town resident representatives for the right voice and the expertise, preferably from education, workforce development, tourism, hospitality, real estate development, economic research, and planning expertise areas. We would want to seek out to have the voice from nonprofit organizations. And there are many in town. I just gave some examples, the big ones, notably related ones, HCA, Marathon Museum, and then liaison from Select Board, Chamber of Commerce, Planning Board, Appropriations, Zoning, and other appropriate committees. Meeting frequency, reporting, and duration, all those we can start, again, small, and then see as needed, and the committees themselves, itself can decide on those as well. This is just a glimpse. I won't drain too much on this. We have discussed it in the past. This was a proposal by the growth study where we were part of earlier, I was part of. And there was a big study report, and part of that was a proposal for Economic Development Office. And this is an outline of the functions and the responsibilities. And I liked it a lot, of course, and I think it's very relevant. So something to look at as a reference as we go about looking at forming a full-blown Economic Development Office. Again, a full-blown can be as minimal as a full-time official, which currently we don't have, and because of that, don't really have a full traction and bandwidth on this. So with all that, my recommendation for the next steps is to have a more open dialogue and obtaining feedback, ideas, thoughts, working with chambers, working with related committees and residents, perhaps through meetings and public forums. And then as Select Board, we can look at deciding what the final charter would look like, and if we decide to formulate the advisory council, and then finally upgrading the current economic development function that Julia Chen is burdened with only 33% availability, and promoting it to a full-time position in office. So I'll pause there. Any questions, comments, or open for discussion?
Great. Thank you very much. I wasn't wrong. You've obviously spent a lot of time and put a lot of energy into this. Thank you. Very, very thorough. Mrs. Ritterbusch, any questions, comments?
I guess I would be curious, like, what would be some next small action steps that we would need? Because I know this has been tried before, and many people have suggested it and worked on it, but it's not really ever come to fruition. So are there some small action steps that we would do soon?
I'm sorry, I missed part of it.
Some action steps, like like we don't have the budget right now for a full-time economic development officer, so that would be one thing.
Yeah, great question. I think, looking at what I would suggest is we discuss and gather the feedback to form the right charter that we want to do with the advisory, and let the advisory also come back with a full-blown proposal for the economic development that I have outlined, and we can discuss and recommend further.
So the first step would be forming a group.
Correct. And part of that would be also working with the appropriations to see where the potential funding might be available. Remember last year, and I know there are many reasons, I had thorough analysis with the CFO as well. We had almost $5 million in free cash, which means there are buffers around. Understandably, they're not permanent buffers. They're maybe because of not hiring, but whatnot. But we can look at those and help prioritize with some more thorough analysis to find the money.
Anything else?
No.
Mr. Clark.
So first off, I would be against adding more committees and boards to our list, but if it has to do with economic development or water, I think it's the right time to look at it. But, going back to your comments around Ms. Chun, so as you described it, she's got kind of 3 portfolios that she spends her time in. And since she's already salaried with the town, is it possible to kind of adjust her, like how much time she devotes to each? Because, you talk about sustainability, equity, and economic development. I think in a perfect world, you could justify positions for all of those things. So to have one person do all of them, I can't imagine it's very productive to do that. So is there a way to kind of shift focus to economic development with that position in the short term to see what we can do? Because I think she's a year in, is that correct?
Yeah, almost right, yep.
You think that would be better?
Over a year, actually, by now, right?
Not a year yet, no.
Oh.
Okay. I'd be interested in looking at that in parallel to starting the committee or the commission, because if there's something that she could get more focused on right away, it's something that we really shouldn't wait for. I look at these other things, sustainability and equity, we have some dedicated committees in some of those areas. Those things can also be weaved in and out of everything that we do. I think those should be pillars for everything the town focuses on. But economic development probably needs a direct focus, would be my first inclination. So I'd like to explore that.
Excellent point. Through the chair, I think that is something we could request Elaine to look at, and if you can recommend something analyzing what her current workload is and how can we have more dedicated focus, but something to look at in the interim, I think is a good idea. But I'm sure our hands are full. And in terms of committees, I couldn't agree more. I think, but the town, administration structure that we have kind of demands the committee and advisory type of framework to get things going. That's the government model we are in. And on that note, I also thought about at some point we may start looking at our overall whole set of committee portfolio and see if there is any way we can also rationalize or have some more efficiency through consolidation. Just a thought. I don't have any strong position on that.
Gotcha. One more question. So in her current capacity, that 33%, is she engaging with neighboring towns that focus on economic development or have these full, departments stood up already?
Good question. I don't have the full view of it. Maybe Elaine can help, but I think she started with engaging and getting to know the business, getting to know our current resources, and engaging with Chamber of Commerce. But Elaine, do you have any?
Yes, Julia's been involved with neighboring communities and their offices, as well as state officials as well, and Mass Bio and other organizations.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Mary Jo.
I think it's important. I was on an economic development task force with the town of Franklin a number of years ago, and it's very important that the right people come together, and I mean the right balance of people from the town, from the business, from all the surrounding areas, and I really think that we need to include a state representative. It probably won't be a senator or a representative. They have too many towns, but it will be one of their staff would also be at the meeting, and that would help facilitate state spending when we're looking for grants or something. They can go directly back to the boss for assistance. I think that this is a very, very worthy idea, and to get the people together is going to be difficult, but I know in Franklin we had chamber people, we had individual business owners, we had council members, and myself, I was a state rep. So it's important. We wound up with some very great ideas and some moving forward in Franklin, and I think we can do that here. The thing is, we don't want to get too big and too unwieldy, because then you don't get things done. You really need to have a real focused group on economic development when you put together this group. That's really all. I mean, we are looking for development in downtown, and we shut down a parking amendment or a parking piece of town meeting, and you can't attract business unless you have parking for them. So I think parking is going to probably come back. It's going to probably be on future agendas and future town meetings, and I really would like people who have ideas or thoughts on how to do that, please come forward, because we need your advice. Thank you.
Great. I have a few questions, maybe kind of going in a couple of quick directions here, or different directions anyway. So Elaine, on the, with Julie, so does she report to you currently?
What's the town manager?
She reports to the town manager, got it, okay. And how long, someone mentioned she's been in the job about a year?
Maybe 9 or 10 months.
Yeah. Has there been tracking of any kind of returns on that investment in terms of like new businesses or new revenue or anything along those lines yet?
Not sure, but.
No, it takes a while, but.
We've been working on grants, but it does take a while.
Yeah, I understand that part. Okay, great. Okay, so just one kind of thing. And somebody mentioned neighboring towns, and Julie's been working with those folks, but how many neighboring towns, let's say those that circle us and maybe one more town out, have this type of full-time position and have an economic advisory council that we would be competing with, right? Do we know that?
Little bit. I think Ashland has one, and on the other side, Westboro has one or forming one.
Okay.
But we do have advantage of being close to the highway. So I think that kind of distinctly being in the 495 corridor gives us a distinct advantage over neighboring towns.
Got it. I know Marlboro has one because I've gone up there for other things.
Yeah.
So I would suspect that Franklin's got it, obviously. So they're out there. I'm just wondering how many are around us. So maybe we, as part of our sort of process to walk down the path, is let's find out. Maybe Julie could reach out and give us some input on how many towns have a full-time person and a full-time dedicated council or committee, what have you, as part of it.
I know Medway does. Medway does.
Would this council be subject to open meeting laws? In other words, fully transparent?
Yeah, usually that is the expectation, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, but we can decide among ourselves and look at what are the forms. But my understanding is any such committee has to be open under open meeting law.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yes, if you're appointing a committee, it must operate under the open meeting law.
But if we appoint you and we appoint several other folks that work in town hall but may not live in town, would that still apply then?
If it's a group of staff, then no.
As non-residents? Do you know what I mean? I don't know the rules around that, so.
Staff are still
just
subject to
curious.
public records law.
Yeah, we'd have to look it up, but I mean, it's best to have something that's under the open meeting law.
Yeah.
Through the chair. I think the committee will be under open meeting law, but the Economic Development Office and the staff doesn't have to be. They will be under operational regulation of our town administration.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. And so I know we have the chamber in town, and the chamber does a lot for the community and certainly promotes business wherever they can. It's the role. Do we see any redundancies in what we're proposing with what they're working on, or is there any conflicts there? Or do we have any redundancies with staffing other than Julie that you could anticipate?
I don't think so. I also had discussions with some of the chamber's leaders over the last year. And, Chambers is also a voluntary organization. So I think this is going to complement and also include Chambers' voice with the residents' voice at large together, and more focused and town administration and various town zoning and other committees together. I think that orchestration is kind of the missing piece. Chambers has, of course, their own focus and their own set of activities, and they're very active, wonderful group of leaders. But I think it has so many stakeholders starting from the regulatory side to our town administration to various committees, planning, ZAC, and others. as well as the business community and residents' voice. That orchestration is the missing part, and this will help complement that.
Got it. Great. Thank you. Let's do this. Let's pause for 1 sec, please. I'd like to open the public hearing for cable television license renewal, Verizon New England Incorporated. The Select Board will hold a public hearing on the renewal of Verizon New England's cable TV license. Federal and state law require the holding of a public hearing for the Select Board to consider approval and execution of the town's proposed Verizon renewal license. This hearing is for the public to have an opportunity to comment on the proposed renewal license and provides an opportunity for the Select Board to deliberate and vote on the proposed renewal. We will now suspend, or what's the term? Continue that public hearing until we wrap up this important item, and then we'll come back to it. Last question I have is, if we put in a full-time dedicated individual, an officer, an economic development officer of sorts, and we have this council, do we have any idea on the anticipated ROI from a time perspective? In other words, when we're going to flip it to turn it into a profitable, center, or we're going to go from a cost model to a profit model at some point down the road. So what are those dollars we're thinking about, perhaps? And I know this is, I have no idea what the answer is, and what the timeline might be in terms of an ROI. Have we been able to keep that around?
Great question. I think that would require more thorough financial analysis and strategic kind of thinking and direction setting. But in general, if we think about it, South Street has 40% capacity that are not utilized. Even if we are able to ramp up 20% utilization, we can do easy math, and it'll show that it's in the millions, which can help us. Now, how long it's going to take is going to be the question. Usually, these would easily take 3, 4, 5 years, but we have to plant the seeds as early as possible so we can garner the results.
In many typical business operations, an investment and an ROI that you're getting your money back in 3 to 5 years is a pretty good deal. Yeah. So I hear what you're saying in terms of the timing, but in terms of just sort of business 101, it's not outlandish by any stretch.
I had something to add when you're done.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to add to that. I think when we looked at this with growth study, we were hoping that it would be just a little better than break even, at least at first. But something about economic development too, though, is if you make a place that people more want to come to and work here, and then they also want to live here, and then it's more residents that get built too. So sometimes it's kind of a wash, but it does make the town more vibrant and enjoyable. But it doesn't necessarily increase the commercial tax base, because the residential might also increase. So, and we can't know really, but that's happened in Hudson, I think.
So just to kind of maybe put a bow on it for this evening anyway, it certainly seems like the board is interested and intrigued by the idea, and it sounds like very supportive of moving something forward. What something will look like, we'll figure out here in the coming weeks and months. Mrs. Lazarus, as the interim town manager, do you suggest or do you support the idea of also looking into this and getting deeper into the weeds?
Yes, I think there's a lot of opportunity here for the town. My only reservation is, when we talk about a specific person and position, I mean, we have a person working in a position that would change, and that's not necessarily easy to accomplish.
Yeah, understood, and we'd find a way to make that work for everybody involved, so understood. I mean, as the business, we got to set up the operation and the process and the procedures and the goals and all that. And then if we have an individual in that mix, then we have to take care of that too. And we certainly would. We wouldn't leave anybody hanging.
But I think that the council is the important part of it.
Setting up the council itself, do you think that's the logical first step?
I think that's important.
Would you agree with that being a logical first step?
I think that makes sense, yeah, sure.
Just one more question for you. Do you think she's set up for success doing this 33% of the time? Seems like a big task to do on, a third of the week.
So far it's been working well because not all of the areas are constant. There's ebb and flow on each. So far it's worked out well.
Okay.
Okay, so with that, I think the next step would be another agenda item where we talk about the constitution of the council itself. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, yeah. That's true.
Would that satisfy your interest in the path you think we should take?
I think so. I think that certainly does, and thanks for everyone's comments and support. One thing we could initiate in the meantime, and I'll work with Elaine, and you all are, of course, welcome to engage as well, is we can start having more kind of feedback loop with the Chamber of Commerce and with some of the key stakeholders that we mentioned, and potentially have a public forum as well. And again, these are the mechanisms how we engage and work and get the ball rolling, so we could do that in parallel as well.
Okay.
I know there's a lot of residents in Hopkinton that are very eager to see something like this come together. So well done, and thanks for that presentation. I think we all learned quite a bit. Okay, with that, we have a public hearing underway. We'll resume that now. Is that the appropriate term, Elaine, to resume the public hearing? And this is for a cable television license renewal for Verizon. Do we have a representative from Verizon here or online, on Zoom?
Bill August?
Yeah, Bill August is on Zoom.
Bill, I believe you're on Zoom and ready to go.
He's not ready yet. Ben has to make him.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Ben explained this to me in the lobby the other day. Of course, my eyes glazed over by the time I figured it out.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Bill August here.
Hi, Bill.
Cable count.
Welcome.
Hi.
Thanks. Go right ahead.
Thank
Please, share with us your thoughts and ideas on what you're trying to do here.
Okay. You have before you a proposed final Hopkinton Verizon renewal license that I have worked very closely with Jim Cousins, developing the details, and with Norm Kumalo before he transitioned into retirement. I don't know where Norm is on that, but I do want to thank him. And we worked very closely, and we have what I believe is continuing what we have in the existing Verizon license, which we're very familiar with, but even better and with more support for the very important Hopkinton local studio channels, local programming, and everything that flows out of that studio. For the main highlights are, there are really two buckets of financial support for these local facilities. There's the annual payment, which is currently under the expiring license at the maximum permitted under the Federal Cable Act, 5% of gross revenues of the Verizon, and in the new 5-year license, it will continue at 5% of gross revenues. So that's at the max. The second bucket of financial support in a cable license, in a well-negotiated license, is what's called the capital funding budget. We have about a 30% increase in the capital funding, and the folks at Hopkinton CAM are extremely pleased with that. So there's improvement there in terms of support. This license also includes first ever high definition local channel. They're currently standard definition. So this will mix it up to have one at high definition and one at the current standard definition. It's a non-exclusive license. The public often assumes this must be some type of exclusivity. We only have 2 cable companies. Hopkinton has Comcast in addition to Verizon. We recently renewed the Comcast. This has more funding than the recent Comcast license on an average annual basis. But it is a non-exclusive license, so there could be more competition. We unfortunately, Congress kicked us out of the ability to limit the rates. Rates are deregulated by acts of Congress. Which people care a lot about, cable rates and any rates. We're out of the deregulation also goes to the actual programming lineup. Sort of the grand bargain of the Cable Act is that, because the rates and the programming are not regulated, and in exchange for that, the cities and towns do have the jurisdiction to negotiate support for local channels. which is a pretty amazing thing when you think about it. You have you have a few TV channels. It's a real priceless asset. And Jim, I know, has been, had accolades for his programming, not just in Hopkinton, but at the state level and in the Alliance for Community Media. He's recognized doing a good job on the local programming. In terms of all the verbiage, it's a long license. This is a very well-vetted license. So first of all, we're building off the existing license, which we fully negotiated, and has a good pedigree. It's based on a license precedence that our firm has negotiated with Verizon, and probably over 10, 15 renewals in the last 3 years. So it's tried and true. We haven't seen it or heard of any problems with it. There's always a first time, and there are a lot of moving parts, but it's been working out well as a Verizon precedent. So it has had again Norm's active involvement until he started transitioning out, which when he was still active when we finalized the language that went to Verizon and Verizon accepts. So it was a real team effort. Just one last note of thanks to everyone in Hopkinton. Like I've worked with Norm and the town for over 20 years, maybe 15 years, however. And, there was a steady commitment to building up community programming. So, it really made a difference. And then in the, finalizing this and getting us to what we're hoping is the end zone, Vasudha and Elaine Lazarus also at every turn, if we had needs about background data or different drafts and versions, they could not have been, more responsive. So, really great to work with the town of Hopkinton. I hope Jim Cousins, who you all know, can say a couple of words, because I know he knows it as well as anyone. If Jim is here, Verizon called late today to really say regrettably they were called to a corporate meeting that was on some type of very high basis that he had to go to. He was planning on attending tonight. John Harrington, the renewal counsel for Verizon, and I'm grateful to Verizon. They were very fair and responsive negotiation partners, and John would be available for any follow-up questions all the time if needed. He could not make it tonight. He had to cancel out today. I found that in my emails later in the day.
Great. Thank you, Bill.
Okay.
Okay, Jim, would you like to share a couple of thoughts? Please. Maybe introduce yourself to those folks that may not know you.
I'm Jim Cousins. I'm the station director at HCAM here in Hopkinton. Have been since its inception in 2004. And I would first like to say, very briefly, thank you all for the work that you do that makes our town the great place that it is. You're all volunteers, and I really appreciate what you do. We are a great community. As far as this contract goes, I am very happy with it. Bill August mentioned that he's been involved with Hopkinton for 15 years. I've actually known Bill for over 30 years because he was the lawyer when I was working in Westboro at WCAT. And I have a lot of faith in him, and I think that this contract is a good contract. I'm very happy with the capital that they're offering to it. So I don't have any complaints.
Great. Thank you for your input.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the Verizon team that would like to speak or need to speak to the board? Okay, with that, let's come to the board next and see if anyone has any thoughts specific to this item. We're still in the public hearing portion. We'll come out to the public in a minute. Mr. Manning.
Not much. First, I just want to also extend thank you to Jim and the HCAM crew for the wonderful work that you do for our town's transparency, our town administration and board's transparency and communication. Wonderful to have you, and we are very thankful for that. As for this particular license renewal, one question I was just wondering, and to educate myself, how do you compare this deal with other neighboring and similar towns?
I think it is. I would. This is a top shelf, high end renewal compared to other towns, because we are at the maximum permitted in terms of the annual funding, which is the lion's share of the funding, and on the capital, we're also, it's very strong, and so it compares very favorably.
Thank you. Nothing else.
All set? Ms. Lafreniere.
I don't have any questions, really.
Thank you.
Ready for a motion?
Joe.
No questions.
I know if the town manager's office and Jim Cousins are happy with it, and we've done this before, I'm happy with it.
Lane, any thoughts, comments on this license renewal?
No, seems like a great opportunity for the town.
Do you have a recommendation?
Recommend that you approve it.
Okay, thank you. So with that, it is a public hearing, so this is an opportunity in an open meeting for the public to comment on a specific agenda item. Does anyone here want to address the issue before us regarding Verizon and the license renewal? Seeing none, do we have any perhaps in Zoom?
No hands raised.
Seeing none. So with that, the chair will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Mann is second, okay? Thank you. Any discussion on the motion to close the public hearing? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is now closed and the board can deliberate. Mrs. Ritterbusch, it sounds like you're ready to move ahead. Is that fair?
Right, I'm comfortable with moving ahead.
Okay. Good? All right, so we have a motion and a second. Everybody seems to be in good shape. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
It's a long
opposed?
motion that we have to do.
I'm sorry, there is a motion. Yeah, Mr. Clark, this is shorter than the first one you read, so.
Oh, yeah, the motion.
For the motion, acting as
So let's do this. We had a motion on the table in a second. Who made that motion? You did, and you seconded. Can you rescind that motion, please?
That was to close the public.
Oh, that's right, that's right. Oh, I'm sorry.
Public hearing,
Thank
that
you.
wasn't this. I said I'm ready for a motion.
Thank you, my mistake. I'm confused. Go ahead, a motion, please.
The motion, acting in its capacity as the statutory cable television license issuing authority pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 166A, and finding that the cable license renewal proposal of Verizon reasonably meets the license and cable-related renewal needs and interests of the public and town, and finding that Verizon's financial and technical qualifications and Verizon's support for the local programming channels, studio, facilities, and services are reasonable to meet town cable license needs, and based on support for continuing Verizon as a licensee serving the town, the Hopkinton Select Board hereby approves the Verizon-approved non-exclusive renewal license effective July 11, 2024, immediately following the expiration of the current license on July 10, 2024.
And is there a second, please?
Second.
Okay, now we have the correct motion on the table in a second. Any discussion on the motion?
Yep.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Great. It is unanimous and so passes. Thank you.
Before we move on, I just want to thank Bill and Jim and Norman for all their work on this.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you all. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. Great to see you all. Good luck.
Have a good night.
Thank you. You too.
We had under item number 9 a second public hearing. This was a continued public hearing. We're going to allow it to continue because we were not ready for it this evening. Is that correct?
Right, so just another vote to continue.
Okay, so we would entertain a motion to continue the public hearing for the Elm Street poll number T.33B/E.33B on the south side of Elm Street to move it. Is there a motion?
I move we continue the public hearing.
Great. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So that hearing is continued to a later date. Item number 10, town employee appointments. The Select Board will consider appointing the following new town employees: Sam Gutwell as a per diem dispatcher and Roberta Anderson as a senior library assistant. Mrs. Lazarus.
So I believe Jessica's on Zoom today, and we have dispatcher first.
We'll do the dispatcher first, and that would be Sam. Hi, Sam.
Hello.
Welcome. And Mrs. Ritterbush, do we have Jessica?
I don't see her unless she's using a different name.
Okay, that's fine. We can go ahead.
Got it? Okay, let's go ahead.
I just want to introduce Sam Gutwill and Megan Durrad, who's the Director of the Communications Department.
Great.
And just some background, that public safety dispatchers are responsible for receiving and transmitting emergency and administrative messages to appropriate law enforcement, fire, and medical personnel in the manner dictated by the state-mandated emergency medical dispatch protocol and the department policy. The position requires the utmost discretion, independent judgment, initiative, and must operate within well-established mandated state and departmental guidelines and procedures. The public safety dispatchers receive, have access to, and must maintain confidential information. Sam has experience at the Sherburne Fire Department as an interior firefighter for 3 years, and at Odessa in Boston for a year as an auction driver and appraiser. His references reveal that he was described by a previous supervisor as focused, calm, and a hard worker. He was also described as having great customer service skills. He's thoughtful and smart when it comes to dealing with people. And a lieutenant from Sherburne Fire stated that Sam is resilient, strong, and gives 110% every day on the job. The interview panel included Megan, Rob Savolt, a public safety dispatcher, and Kristen Merrill, HR generalist, and interim town manager recommends appointment.
Thank you very much. Mr. Manon.
Nothing in particular. Just wanted to understand if you want to share your reason for your interest in this position and for our town.
Yeah, of course. As you guys know, my name is Sam Gutwill. I am currently a firefighter EMT for the town of Sherburne. I live in Upton, and I'm curious about the other side. I've known the fire side of it. I love to learn the dispatch side of it, and I'm always looking to better my skills, get more tools in my toolbox, and I'm excited to have this opportunity at the town of Hopkinton.
Thank you, and welcome.
Who's the front here?
Being on the force in Sherburne, do you see any problems with hourly or filling in or rushing to either department?
I don't. My schedule is it's a pretty set schedule in Sherburne, and I believe I'll be able to make do.
So this is a continuing step for you?
Yes.
You want to know dispatch plus the firefighting, et cetera?
Yes.
Okay. And you live right here in town?
I live in Upton, right on the border.
Oh, okay. All right. No, I think, why did you want to come to Hopkinton?
My brother is a dispatcher in Hopkinton.
Your brother is?
My brother, and
yes.
yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think I'm done.
Mr. Clark.
No questions. Welcome.
Thank you.
So I'll also say welcome. It sounds like a good fit. It'll be a step for you to see if you like the dispatching or not, and you have the fire experience. And then if you like it, maybe there'll be another position open later.
Thank you.
So every now and then on the board, you have to play the role of the manager or something along those lines. So bear with me for a couple of quick questions. You mentioned your brother is a dispatcher now. Will you be reporting to your brother in any way, shape, or form?
No.
Ms. Lazarus, do we have any kind of nepotism policy specific to the town and its employees?
Yes, we do.
And what does that state?
Well, it's in the employee handbook, but I can't quote that. But the employee handbook does address that, but so I can't recite it. But
And that is not an issue in this particular case?
no, it's not an issue if you're not reporting.
Right, okay. Don't read into it. I'm just asking the questions that I don't get paid to ask, okay? And Megan, you recommend this hire?
I do.
Great. Okay, thanks for bearing with me on that one. So last question I have is, and this is a general question, has nothing to do with Sam's position. where is the line drawn for what the board or who the board hires and who we don't hire? Like, you know, do we have to hire and go through a public process for every hire that comes to the town?
So the charter requires the select board to confirm the town manager's appointments. The interim town manager doesn't have the authority to make permanent appointments. So you're actually appointing now, but when there's a permanent town manager, you would be confirming the town manager's appointment. It doesn't have to be in person, but it does need a vote to confirm.
We would confirm when there's a town manager in place.
Correct.
Okay. All right, got it. I don't recall that part. All right. I have no further questions. With that, I think we're ready to take a vote. The chair will entertain a motion to appoint Sam Gutwell as the per diem dispatcher.
I move to appoint Sam Gutwell as the per diem dispatcher in the Communications Department.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. Is that motion in order, Mrs. Lazarus? Just to make sure we're good. Great. Okay. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It is unanimous and so carries. Welcome, Sam.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in tonight. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Let's do the, let's do, yeah, let's do Roberta Anderson. She's here to, for us to fill the senior library assistant position. Mrs. Lazarus.
So we're introducing Roberta Anderson, and we also have Nancy Hill, who's the director of the public library this evening. So Roberta is recommended as senior library assistant. She replaces Ray Stevenson, who was promoted to reference technology librarian. The senior library assistant may perform complex administrative work in support of the daily operations of the library while providing excellent customer service to patrons. The role requires tact and discretion while working in a flexible and energetic work environment. Roberta's experience is at the Hopkinton Public Library for 1.5 years as a substitute library assistant, with the Dover Public Library for 3 years as library assistant, and with the Wellesley Free Library with 3 years as library assistant. She has a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, both in music. Her references revealed that she's a talented library professional, bringing years of customer service and library experience to the position. She's taken on many projects during her time as a substitute circulation assistant and has learned to expertly manipulate online and in-person circulation systems, process new materials, and provide detailed circulation services, including readers' advisory. She shines when working with the youngest emerging readers, patrons with the highest levels of need, as well as introducing an older patron to assistive technology, such as audiobooks through their smartphone. The interview panel included Nancy, Allison Keeney, Circulation and Technical Services Supervisor, and Kristen Merrill, the Human Resources Generalist.
Great, thank you for that overview. Mrs. Ritterbusch, you want to start this time?
Sure. I just want to say welcome. It sounds like you're well qualified. You've been here before, so you know what you're getting into and that you like the environment, hopefully. Yeah, and I think it's great that, you have the music degree, but you can also do libraries. My sister followed the same path. She has a music theory degree and ended up getting her Master of Library Science later.
Very good.
Mr. Clark.
No questions. Appreciate the service over the last 1.5 as a substitute. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Mary Jo.
Welcome to Hopkinton. Any particular reason why you're choosing Hopkinton to come to?
Boy, I don't know who wouldn't want to work in that beautiful Hopkinton Library. It's just a wonderful environment, a great community center, staffed with just committed and creative people. It's a wonderful asset for the town of Hopkinton and a real center of the community, and I'm proud and happy to be a part of it.
Can I ask another question? Will this round out the library staff?
This gives us a full staff.
That's what I thought, because it seemed like
We're very excited.
we're hiring for the library for a lot. So this is a full library staff now.
Yes.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Mr. Brennan.
Yeah, great to hear that. Certainly love our library and all the services you do, and you've been here 15 or 1.5 years. So thank you for all the service
you.
and choosing our town. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
So the manager in me loves approving commodities. This is great, excellent appointment, and really excited about it. With that,
I'll make a motion.
please.
Okay, I'll make a motion to appoint Roberta Anderson as Senior Library Assistant.
Second?
We have a motion and a second on the table. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It is unanimous. Welcome, Roberta. Thank you very much for coming in tonight.
Thank you.
Good luck to you. And we have a third and final appointment this evening. The Select Board will interview and consider appointing Adam Rowe as a Police Academy officer for the town of Hopkinton. Mrs. Lazarus.
Through the chair, should we do the photo of the first two first, because it takes longer to do the police appointments?
Is the photo thing like
Yeah, we do all new employees.
that's just a practice? Is it required, or what's the deal on
And
that?
it may make itself into the annual town,
Sorry?
it may make itself into the annual town report also.
Okay, then let's do those photos.
We
We
could
have
do
those
this
two
too.
folks here, did they bolt on us already?
No, they're here.
Here they are, right here.
Because we're going to have another one in a minute.
Yeah, so we're gonna do these two, and then we'll do
Okay,
the other one.
that's fine.
I don't know, when I get hired, no one takes my picture. Okay, thank you, Mr. Bush, for making sure we did that. Next up, as mentioned, the Select Board will interview and consider appointing Adam Rowe as a Police Academy officer for the town of Hopkinton. Mrs. Lazarus and others.
So the board is the appointing authority for police officers, and so in this case, the board always interviews and appoints new police officers.
Okay. Adam, welcome. Great to see you. I look forward to hearing your background. So for this particular interview, we have a typical interview process. Is that a fair statement for the board that we go through kind of in a consistent manner? These types of questions, right? So that we don't get too far off the path.
Yeah.
It's Adam Rowe. Mrs. Ritterbusch, would you lead us off, please?
Sure. Okay, so I'm going to go with question 2, if that's okay. So, so welcome, and I think I may remember you from Center Stage Left, is that right?
Oh, perfect. All right.
Okay, but the town of Hopkinton has adopted the pledge principles and actions on systemic racism in our community and other communities. That pledge reaffirms Hopkinton's ongoing commitment to address systemic racism, social injustice, and inequity in our governance and provision of services to Hopkinton residents and businesses. In what ways, as a police officer, can you support the pledge?
Absolutely. Hold myself to the highest level of accountability in which the department supports and embodies. Another way I can support this is recently I've been a substitute teacher at the Hopkinton schools. And in part, I've been meeting with students and building rapport with students from multiple diverse communities so they have someone that they can come to if they find themselves in a situation where police are involved.
Okay, thank you. So my son is substituting there this week too, so you may see him around. Okay.
Joe, question? Good, Amy? Joe?
Go, question one. What is it about Hopkinton that interests you in this position? And what are your long-term career goals, and how does this position fit in with these goals?
So the reason why I picked Hopkinton is primarily due to living in this town all my life. I am part of a multi-generational extended family who's all grown up and lived in this town. And I truly owe it to this town's public safety, this town's school system, and overall its community environment, which has pushed me to a point where I believe it is vital to me to give back to this community. They have pushed me towards success, which I am truly grateful for what they have provided.
Awesome. That certainly resonates with me. A little bit. I noticed in your cover letter that you were graduating with your master's this month. Is that done?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I'm good.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for your interest, and you have a wonderful background, so certainly I'm happy to see you here. If you were hired as a Hopkinton police officer, what steps would you take to build trust and legitimacy with fellow officers and the community?
With fellow officers, I am truly excited to start building rapport with my fellow officers. I believe there are multiple community events in which I can engage with them and build rapport with not only them, but the community. To build rapport with the community, I believe there are multiple initiatives we can take, such as meeting with our diverse religious organizations in town, officers meeting with churches, temples, mosques, to kind of build rapport with top members of those communities, which can hopefully spread to diverse populations.
Thank you.
Hometown boy, yay. It's nice to have one coming on the force. And usually I ask questions about a difficult situation you've been in or something like that, but you're kind of new to this game, so we're going to send you to the police academy, and I think you're going to do a wonderful job, and I'm very glad to see that you've come forward.
Thank you so much.
Down. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to go off script a little bit here. I see you have two other folks from the police department with you this evening, Adam. Welcome, by the way. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
And to the gentlemen to your left and right, do you folks recommend hiring Adam for this position?
Through the chair, if I could, a couple comments I'd like to make.
Sure.
First off, I'd be remiss in not thanking all the people that helped bring Adam to you for consideration. With HR and Jessica's team, and Lieutenant Van Ralton and the team that he assembled, and all the work that goes into getting him here, because it is an exhaustive and extensive process involving backgrounds and psychologicals and physicals, and all that has to be managed. So I want to thank everybody that brought him here, and I wanted to tell a story. So Adam reached out to me and was interested in learning about the department and any opportunities he might be able to come to the department. And we had been emailing back and forth looking for a time slot. And about an hour and a half before the half-day pizza party, I said, well, if you want to come by, and not only did he come by, but he brought someone, and we really needed him, and he did a great job, and he made a real connection with the officers who were there. So right then and there, I knew that he'd be a great addition to the department. I feel he's going to fit in very well, and I ask that you appoint him as a police officer and send him to the police academy.
Great, thank you for that input. Lieutenant?
I echo the chief's words. It's an extensive process. Over the last year, we've interviewed and gone through upwards of 30 different candidates. Through that process, we recently hired Noah Buntello, who's also a hometown boy, and to find another one in town who's vested in the community, his family's vested in the community. I think it's an incredibly fortunate opportunity, not only for the department, but for the town. And I wholeheartedly support his appointment and for him to start the academy in Boylston July 8th.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that. I don't have any other questions myself. Anyone else?
Just one other related, but not for the candidate question. This would be our 23rd or 26th hire out of 29.
So this will bring us to 24. There is another candidate that is in the queue and is preparing to go to the academy. There are some others that are within HR that are being evaluated.
24, that's a good number. Thank you.
Mrs. Lazarus, anything from your vantage point?
No, nothing.
Great, thank you. Any other questions, comments? So with that, could we the chair will entertain a motion?
I move to appoint Adam Rowe as Police Academy Officer for the town of Hopkinton.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the table to appoint Adam to be a police officer for the town of Hopkinton. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? It's unanimous and so carries. Welcome, Adam. Congratulations. Good job. With that, we'll do a pick.
Yeah, I got to do a picture.
I have to start wearing a tie. Everybody good? All set? You got it?
Yep.
Great. Good job, Adam. Coming in. Pat, coming in. See you.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that's great. Always exciting.
Okay, now we have.
So that takes us through item number 11. Item number 12 on the agenda at 7:45. So just want to make sure we don't get too far ahead of ourselves. In case others are following, is hiring process updates on the town manager, the deputy police chief, and the deputy fire chief. The select board will receive updates on the hiring process relating to the town manager, deputy police chief, and deputy fire chief. The select board will discuss the deputy fire chief hiring process. So do we have Jessica? We didn't find her earlier this evening, did we?
Okay. Bernard Lynch, is that?
No, he's
Yes.
the town manager.
For town manager, okay. And I don't see Jessica.
Okay, he's with the company.
Okay, so why don't we do this then? Let's do the fire chief first, the deputy fire chief. Is the fire chief here? He is. And then we'll do the deputy police chief. And then again, like last week or 2 weeks ago, Lane, you could step off and then we can come out to our colleagues to help us with the town manager. So just bear with us for a few minutes there on the town manager role. Okay? Welcome, Chief.
Good evening.
How are you?
Good.
Good, good. Do you want to share where you're at with the process, what your mindset is? And then I know we talked about this one a little bit more last week than a couple of the other two anyway. And I'm just curious if there's anything else on your mind.
No, I'm still just waiting for your direction, how much advertising you want to do, whether you just want us to advertise as internal or advertise it external.
Okay.
And how much of an assessment center you would like.
Okay. All right, thank you. Mrs. Lazarus, do you have any thoughts on this position in terms of the boards, where we are and the pricing on the assessments and things of that nature and the interviews or the recruiting?
So we did review the RFP, the response to the RFP that the town sent out for consultant services for this, and the price that was quoted last time is for the entire process. So if we do go with the consultant, they would take care of the entire process, including the advertising, with the price that was mentioned.
And was that the 10 Gs approximately?
The last one I saw was 7,000, but that was just the assessment center. That doesn't include the advertising.
The total is $9,775. But it
In sales,
actually
10
doesn't
grand.
include the advertising, which the town would cover the advertising.
Okay.
So.
All right, great, thank you. All right, so let's come to the board now. I know that this is a process that has been ongoing for a while. I think Mr. Clark had some questions last time about the process itself, so maybe we start with you and we'll go from there.
Sure. I think we heard again tonight, I believe it was Mr. Thomas in the public forum, talked about the strong chief clause, in the Mass General laws. And, I see this as, my questions for the chief would be, one, do you feel like you have the right candidates internally? And two, do you need the select board support here? Because if not, I think you have everything in your power to do this on your own. And I would love to be able to support the department leading on its own, making that decision and moving forward quickly without spending costs. Because I see those costs, whether it's $7,000 or $10,000, if the board's getting involved in that, that's the board getting involved in how the fire department's using some of its budget. So, I feel strongly that that's an option that we should go down if the chief's comfortable with that.
I'm certain that any of the lieutenants in this department would be great deputy chiefs. They've all been with the department over 20 years. Some have been officers 15 plus years. The town's invested thousands of dollars worth of training, education in these men. So any one of them could step up and be a great deputy fire chief.
Okay. Mrs. Ritterbusch.
So are you proposing not even doing the assessment center? Is that what you're suggesting? Or just not advertising externally? Is that?
That's what I was suggesting.
No assessment center either?
Nope.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, the question was,
The assessment center is the expensive piece, right? The 7,000?
Yes, straight assessment center is around 7,000.
Okay.
and you're suggesting that he not do the assessment center because he's a strong chief and he can do his?
Yeah, if he doesn't need it, again, I think he's come to the board, and my questions were really, does he feel like he has the right candidates in-house, and does he feel like he needs the select board or an assessment center's help here? And I think he just answered that he's confident in what he has to make this decision on his own. So I feel like it's a good opportunity for the board to step back and let the department, which in my opinion, the things I would look at is it's a department that's run well. I haven't heard of any personnel issues. The budget's been strong, and we have a chief that the board previously put a lot of confidence in, promoting him to chief last year. So with those things in mind, I think it's a great opportunity to just move forward quickly at the chief's discretion.
Okay, let's go back to Mrs. Ritterbusch. Any other thoughts, questions?
So I'm just on the fence here, I guess, because I thought we had decided it previously and I didn't realize it was controversial. But so I do think it's always a good practice to advertise both externally and internally, but not to go to great expense to do that. We can just post it both ways, I think, even if, but I understand that the chief is confident he's got internal candidates that would be great, which is fine.
Okay. All set? Mary Jo.
Yeah, HR isn't here, and I wanted to ask, how many new candidates do we have from town, from the department? How many people do you know from the department that are going to apply?
There would probably be 2 to 3 lieutenants that would be eligible.
So we have enough candidates. And you said something when we were talking about advertising. You want to do your own advertising.
If I were to do it, I would just post it internally.
Post it internal. Okay. I have no problem with that.
Okay. Mr. Mann.
Yeah, through the chair. No, that's good to hear. And I think we didn't hear that before, but if you feel your lieutenants are ready and you feel comfortable promoting them, I mean, that's definitely a good news in my view. Now, the only question I would ask, do you see going any benefit or necessary need to go out to seek additional candidates, or you feel like super comfortable they can hit the ground running, or you have coached them enough, and as you mentioned, we have invested enough, so we we are comfortable with them.
Yeah, I think we've invested a lot of money over the years on all our firefighters. Hopkinton has a lot of unique things, such as the LNG facility and stuff, and the deputy fire chief really oversees the daily operations. So to bring in an outside candidate would be a lot more for me to train up, whereas one of the lieutenants could actually just step into that role and hit the ground running.
And skill and all experience-wise, you are comfortable. So I have no problem with that either. I think, it can be efficient, and having someone can be more motivating, and there's some savings involved too. And I also trust the judgment of the chief. He runs the department and knows the people. So I think I would be okay with that.
Okay with that? Okay. So Chief, you mentioned you have three internal candidates, okay? One person would get the position. How will you manage any fallout, concern, frustration, whatever, disappointment that others might feel? And I think people's, how they feel in situations like this is important. And how would you help sort of facilitate that and get folks to kind of come back together and continue on as a great team?
So even if we didn't do an assessment center, we would still bring in some outside chiefs. I know Mary Jo originally asked to be part of the interview process, so we will interview our 3 candidates. And then I would just use that as a learning experience from them and say, this is why we picked X, and then help them get to that point for the next opening.
Okay, great. I like that thinking. Okay, well, I guess my only other question is, and it's kind of something about similar to what you were talking about, if he is the strong chief, which he is, and it's a strong chief position in Hopkinton,
They both are.
Mrs. Lazarus, why are we in the midst of this at the moment anyway?
The prior board had headed down a different path.
Okay, all right, so there was just a little bit more engagement there.
Correct.
For various positions.
The board, I think the board liked the process of more engagement by others in the process of interviews and review.
Got it, okay. All right, that's fair, and I can certainly understand that would be some positions, and I think the statute is pretty clear, but for me as a business person, the manager, the chief, the leader should manage his team. And if his team goes awry, I don't go talk to the team, I talk to the manager. So if the manager is going to make the decisions, then the manager gets to make that decision, but then also the manager has the accountability to make that decision work, which is why I asked the question about how you're going to handle the other sort of stuff. So I'd be okay with us backing out and letting the chief do his thing with however he sees it fit. So we're not on a formal path yet with this position, is that correct? Has this been just sort of a dialogue to date? Do we have to vote or anything specific to this?
I don't know that the board has taken any votes in this regard.
It's just been dialogue, sir.
Just dialogue to date. So does that ring true for everybody in terms of
Yeah.
I think
the next steps, which is a non-step, like step backwards, like we're out?
Not moving forward. One thing I wanted to also understand and clarify from process perspective. Oh, sorry. One thing I wanted to understand from a process perspective, and Elaine, through your time here, what was the process traditionally in the town and also in other towns? Is it solely on the fire chief, or is it a committee, or what was it before?
I can't speak to other towns, but here, the only one I recall is when Gary became a deputy, and it was an internal posting, and there was an assessment center.
Yeah.
So internal posting, but a assessment committee, was it?
There was no select board
Involvement.
correct.
Okay.
But they did do
But there was an assessment center. And I don't know if Gary wanted to describe what happens at an assessment center, but if it's something that we think is important, we can find the funding for it.
Yeah, no, thank you. I am comfortable with that. I mean, I run organizations, and usually you're right, it's the chief who takes the responsibility and ownership. It's always good to have the resident's voice and the leader's voice, but if traditionally we've been comfortable, I don't see need to, go X out of the way too much.
Historically, the past 5 deputy chiefs have come from internal.
Internal, yeah.
I think every deputy chief the department has come internal.
Right. And from the charter also, it's kind of only the chiefs and town manager is the select board's direct responsibility, my understanding.
I think there is a slight difference between the fire chief and the police chief, even though they're both strong chiefs. I think we're still the appointing authority for police officers. Is that correct? Correct. Solely, with obvious input from the management team or the chief and deputy chief and so on the police side. But on fire side, in the past, my recollection is that we weren't really engaged. We would talk and certainly guide and, have the reviews on an annual basis with him, who you hired and things like that. But I don't think we were really involved in it. So.
No, understand. Maybe a question for later, which is coming up, which is for the police chief, is it different tradition-wise or government structure-wise?
The language of each statute is different for fire chief versus police chief. It's slightly different.
And the recent passage of the strong chief clause, does it change any of that or? Okay. Thank you. That clarifies it.
Well, I know we went out when we looked for the chief's position, but I don't think we've ever done deputy chief before. And either.
Okay. So why don't we do this, though? Why don't we vote to make a very clear decision so that there's no ambiguity about what we're going to do with the deputy fire chief position? So the chair will entertain a motion to withdraw its guidance and decision-making deliberations with respect to the deputy fire chief for the town of Hopkinton.
So moved.
Is there a second for that motion? Do you think that motion makes sense? I think it did. I don't know.
It makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's in reasonable order that we're just backing out of this one.
Say we will allow the chiefs to decide whether to use the assessment center or an internal process.
I'm sorry?
Why don't we just, maybe we could just make the motion that we would allow him to make the decision of assessment center versus an internal versus external process?
But if we back away, he can do that.
Right. Yeah. I guess I'm still wanting a real nice, big, rigorous process, but we'll let the chief choose what that will be, I guess.
If he doesn't have a rigorous process and his hire doesn't work, there's the person we're going to talk to.
Yeah.
I like that.
We do have a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, Chief, you are free and unencumbered. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, as part of the process for the hiring of folks, let's talk about the deputy police chief position. And again, I don't know if Jessica's here, so.
So I think all that the board needs to do at this point is set a date for the interviews of the final candidates.
Okay. How many final candidates do we have?
If Jessica were here, she could tell us.
Can you estimate the number?
Probably 3.
Approximately 3. Okay, so 2, 5, somewhere in there, 3. Okay, so we have 3 candidates that we would interview. And what has been the past practice of late for interviewing candidates when we have multiples for a position within the police department? Does that happen on a Tuesday evening? Does that happen on a different evening? I'm a big fan of Tuesday evening, like normal meeting stuff, because that's what we get charged to do here.
The board has typically done it at a regular meeting, but it's dependent on how heavy the agenda is looking, too, and how long you think it will take.
And how long would a typical interview be per person, do you think, for this role? Are we following the same 5-question format or something along those lines?
We just did the lieutenant. Did we each ask 2 questions of them? There are 3 people.
Might be about 15, 20 minutes per
And then they took turns waiting downstairs.
So if we did a max 30 minutes, it's an hour and a half of our meeting. That meeting may run a little longer than an 8 p.m. close or something like that. But
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that happens,
everybody?
and that's okay. Yeah.
Yep.
So I think then the next thing to do would be to get with Jessica on the deputy chief position and suggest that the board is ready to proceed with bringing in the approximate 3 candidates during a regularly scheduled meeting. We'll set aside enough time for each one.
Okay.
Does that sound good to everybody?
Yep.
I don't think that requires a vote. Do you? Nope. Okay. And then finally, Ms. Lazarus, if you wouldn't mind, the board will discuss the hiring process with respect to the town manager position. Mrs. Lazarus has stepped off, and I'm sorry, John's not with us this evening. There's another gentleman. I didn't get his name.
Bernard Lynch, it looks like.
I'm sorry?
Bernard Lynch, it looks like.
Bernard Lynch. Bernard, welcome.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having us.
If you would be so kind as to update us as to where you folks are.
Sure. I think Ben may be there, or someone from. There we go. We have a very brief PowerPoint presentation just to present to the board and to the public on where we are with the town manager finalists. Unfortunately, John couldn't be here, but I met with the previous board back in early April. My name is Bernie Lynch. I'm the principal of Community Paradigm Associates, and we're pleased to be working with the town again on the selection of a new town manager. So I'll just give you an update based upon the information that I have from John and from sort of where we've been in this process. In terms of the search summary, we were engaged by the town in early April. I believe we met with the board on April 2nd, but we actually were on a little bit before that, beginning our work on the process. Our first step, as I advised the board that night when I met with the board, is to identify the community priorities and the attributes that we wanted to know from the board and from other stakeholders in the town, what people were looking for from the new town manager. Norman was there for a number of years, but certainly the town has changed and evolved, and there's different needs and opportunities that the town is looking for now from a town manager. And so, we think it's a good process to go through to sort of identify what those needs are and the priorities. Also, and from that, we conducted these interviews of board members, department heads. We conducted a community survey that we gathered quite a bit of information and ran that through until April 12th. And again, I think it's a good process, but importantly for us, we use that information to develop a position profile or position statement that we use to market the position. That was as of April 12th. We got the go-ahead on the document that we developed with a few edits from the town, from the then town manager, and we began our active recruitment on April 12th by posting with the Massachusetts Municipal Association, which obviously is the primary source for opportunities here in the state. We also posted with the International City and County Management Association, which is the nationwide organization of city managers and town managers. We utilized a number of other sources as well to post the position and get the word out. For example, we used the Boston chapter of the National Forum for Black Public Administrators. We also post regularly with the area universities that offer master's degrees in public administration and similar degrees. Not so much for the recent graduates, but for alumni that are looking for positions that rely upon the universities and colleges where they obtain their degrees. So that's more of a passive, if you will, just getting the word out. We also, we have an extensive database of some 400 plus individuals, including all of the managers of the state, in which we distributed this position through a position announcement referencing the position statement. And then we did more extensive candidate outreach to a number of area managers, assistant managers, people that we're familiar with that might be interested in Hopkinton or might be a good choice for Hopkinton based upon our knowledge of the town and our knowledge of their background. So we contacted several dozen individuals directly, encouraged them to look at the job and to apply to the position. The deadline for applications was May 6th. So we received all the applications on May 6th. We got 21 applicants, which is pretty much in line with what we're seeing in that particular region. I should note that, at this point, a Community Paradigm has conducted over the last 7 years over 100, close to 110, I think, recruitments for town managers and town administrators in the state. So we certainly like to think that we have a pretty good handle on the market. And 21 applicants in the Metro West area is a reasonable number of applicants for this position. If we could go to the next slide. You appointed a screening committee, or there was a screening committee that was appointed with a number of representatives. I believe there's one representative, in fact, from the board. There was the school superintendent, the personnel board had 2 members. The HR director Jessica sat on the committee, and you had 1 resident that sat on the committee. And I'll tell you, we work regularly with screening committees in many of our with many of our clients, many of our communities, and certainly the word I received from John is that the committee worked very well together and really brought their A game to the task of reviewing the resumes and narrowing down the field, and then conducting the interviews. Of the 21 applicants, you had 6 that were identified by the screening committee for interviews. There was a review certainly of all 21, but those 6 were the ones that stood out to the members of the committee. And interviews were held over 2 days. And the topics that were reviewed were their careers. Obviously, we can read about their careers on their resumes, but we wanted to have the opportunity to have the candidates speak to their specific backgrounds, what the experiences they've had, and most importantly, why are they interested in Hopkinton? What is it about the Hopkinton position that attracted them, and they felt that made them a good candidate for this position? Time was spent on talking about leadership and management, the difference between the two, and some sense of their style of building teams and working through issues and coming to decisions on matters of the town, and how they would be interacting with the department heads as well as members of the community. We talked about their background with budgeting, financial management, project management, that balance of economic development, which is obviously a priority in almost every community, but likewise, and certainly Hopkinton has experienced this, is while development is very important for the development of revenue, jobs, and quality of life of the community, likewise in terms of the quality of life is growth management, how you manage any of that development that happens. So it was that balance that was addressed in the interviews as well. Personnel management, including collective bargaining, citizen relations, citizen engagement, and transparency. We see this in many communities, and certainly Hopkinton is not unique in this, that there's quite a bit of interest in ensuring that citizens are engaged in the process of local government, and there's transparency with the decision-making that occurs, and that information is spread widely with regards to decision-making. And then lastly, select board relations. A successful town manager has to be able to work successfully with their select board members in terms of communication, in terms of roles and responsibilities, and we want to understand how they've been able to do that. Throughout that, so as a result of all that interviewing that took place with the screening committee, the committee identified 4 finalists for presentation to the board. And if I can go to the next slide. We are now in the process of conducting their background checks, background reviews. We do a preliminary background review that we have complete before we even meet with the screening committee, and understanding a little bit about the candidates that they're reviewing. Obviously, our knowledge of the municipal manager world gives us a leg up in trying to understand the backgrounds of these individuals and what has taken place in their careers. John had worked with the committee in reviewing all of that. obviously utilizing whatever internet resources are there through search engines to look at their experiences in other communities and trying to sort of explain everything that we know about those individuals. So John Petrin did all of that with the committee prior to the interviews taking place. But we move forward now with background reviews that include a Corey check, reviewing their educational credentials to ensure that they're in fact as described in their resume. Likewise, their employment experience is verified. And then we spend time speaking with their references that we can get from their references, not only the sort of a sense that they're a good employee or not, but more, as you'll see when we give you your finalist report, we spend time talking through all their references to get some identification of the types of projects that they've worked on with these candidates and what the style of these candidates is with regards to decision-making, interpersonal relations, etc., so that you have a sense of these candidates and what their backgrounds are as you're interviewing them. We spend roughly 30 to 60 minutes, I would say, with each reference of each candidate. We're doing 4 to 5 references for each one. So we spend arguably more time talking to the people that have worked with them than we've actually spent talking to the candidates at this point in time to get a full understanding of these individuals. So we will be generating a finalist report, and we'll get that out to you by the end of next week, so that you have that in hand when you move forward with the next steps. The next steps that we've identified based upon discussions with the town is a candidate meet and greet event the week of June 17th. I think, Mr. Chair, you and John had spoken about having a meet and greet, I believe, maybe perhaps the 18th. But Jessica has advised me that that's in fact a select board meeting that night. So I guess we'd probably more likely be looking at the 17th or the 20th of that week, if that's possible, so that the select board members can participate in this meet and greet with the public, which would occur at the library from 6 to 8 p.m. Have those 4 candidates there to be able to spend some time talking to residents of the town. And then the board would be conducting their interviews on July 9th with the anticipated selection on July 11th, and then obviously negotiation of a employment agreement following that. And we would stand ready to assist the board with that process as well. So we can take down the PowerPoint now, I guess.
Bernie, if you wouldn't, yeah, let's leave that up if we could, only because I think there's a couple of key dates up there and things we want to talk about.
Yeah,
Thank you. So thank you for the overview. I did have a phone call with John Petrin before he went out for, I believe he's on vacation. Good for him. But I was also going to be hoping that Jessica could kind of walk us through some of this as well. So without her here this evening, or I don't think she's still not with us, we're a little bit kind of off cue here for a bit. Let's start with the next steps. Bernie's team is going to give us a finalist report by next Thursday, it looks like the 13th. Everybody good with that, receiving that information?
By the 13th?
By the 13th. That sound reasonable? Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I think that sounds reasonable. But I'll let you finish. And through the chair, I had some questions regarding the meet and greet, but...
Yeah, okay. We'll come back to that because I think that's just a different concept that we'll kick around. And then the discussion I had with John and was going to get with Jessica on tonight was talking about this concept of the meet and greet. So maybe that's some of your questions will be there too. And then if that were to happen at that time and everybody was ready to have the interviews, they would be on July 11th or July 9th from 5 to 9. I think this would be an hour per individual if we have 4 candidates. I think that makes sense, given the role and so forth.
You just say three?
I'm sorry?
You just say three candidates?
Oh, or it's four. Is
how do
it
you
four
say
candidates? I want to come. You're going to go to you next for everything anyway. So, and then a board selection on July 11th at 7, if that works. But I think some of the key dates up there are coming in the next month or so. So let's just kind of, if everyone doesn't, unless someone's going to Europe or something and disappearing, this is not in cement yet, but this is kind of where we're headed at the moment. But with that, let's pause for a second. Mr. Mann's been very involved in this whole process. If you would share sort of your thoughts on the process, not all the history like we just did there, but just where we are today, your thoughts on this idea here and anything else you have on your mind.
No, thank you, through the chair. So the process was pretty robust, and I want to thank the committee. Everyone was very dedicated. We had a wonderful group of resident voices who are also expert, and a lot of HR and organizational leadership experience. So I definitely was really happy to work with all of them in groups. We had two half days of interviews with all the candidates, and we did go over all the different areas that Bernie mentioned, and John was wonderful in orchestrating and facilitating all that. And through that, we had very engaged discussions, and based on the criteria and the insights from everyone, we thought, having a broader spectrum of candidates for larger review with the board, and also giving the opportunity to engage and be visible with the residents would be, a logical next step and would be a good idea. And certainly would also give the board flavor of the variety and of the strong talents that we have observed. So that's been a great experience, and I think the committee has done a wonderful job. Now, that said, and we discussed it in the committee as well, is the meet and greet is certainly going to help bringing them in a more larger audience to see how they interact and how the residents also feel, and we all can also participate in that. And that said, I would be interested to know, in that format, the outcome, how are we going to capture that? Is that going to be some kind of survey or feedback mechanism, or it would be more just to get the feel and flavor, but the main evaluation would be in the board's final decision? That's something for the board to, I think.
Share a little how we do it where I work, if that's helpful. We hired a tech director recently, and the tech department is not the decider, and neither is the curriculum team, but there was a day when the candidates all came and we all got to meet with them in small groups, and we got just filled out a little survey form, very brief, just to kind of weigh in, even though it's really the superintendent's decision. Like in this case, it's our decision, but we could have that input from the public. So I would suggest something similar, if Jessica is comfortable with that.
That makes sense, yeah, like that. Thanks for sharing.
All set?
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, I think the idea of some kind of survey form filled out, and certainly Jessica could help us put that together. She's probably done that before with other situations, would make sense coming out of that meet and greet. There are some logistics involved in having a meet and greet, and maybe 50 or 100 residents showing up to meet possible new town managers. If so many are interested at the library, we'd have to have different rooms for the various candidates and make sure it's organized in a professional way. But I like the idea of getting some feedback in a document. The only thing I'm worried about is are there any legal pitfalls in having folks filling out a document? What if they fill out that document and there's something inappropriate in there or something along those lines? But I guess we can try and filter that out somehow and never have it come to us, right? So we'll put that with Jessica.
And also, we probably would not, I don't know if OML applies, would not share all the feedback and surveys publicly, but for us to digest and process in the decision making.
Yeah, so we can talk to Jessica about that. So Bernie, if you could do me a favor, please, can you check in with Jessica tomorrow? I have a full day at the office, but I'd love to hear from her at some point and just kind of get her thoughts on the schedule that's outlined and her thoughts on the logistics. I would need her to be the one kind of coordinating all that for us. We don't have the town manager's office doing this, obviously. So we're going to have to rely on her to kind of help with some of that on the operational side.
Yeah, Jessica's aware of the dates. We actually, again, we went over the dates earlier today and identified the 18th as being a problem because the board's meeting that night. So she's aware. She and I discussed it. It's either the 17th or the 19th because, the 17th or the 20th because the 19th is a holiday. In terms of the survey, I can speak with her about that, of how she could go about doing that. Other communities that we've worked with have not used a survey. Others have used a survey of some sort of form, and generally that is worked through with their HR department. There is the risk. Arguably, there is a sense that because these will be coming through, that have to be generated in such a way to ensure that there's nothing inappropriate put into any of the documents that comes out for legal reasons. But at the same time, there is sort of a public record issue here with regards to that, if they're filling them out and making comments. But perhaps a survey type of, as opposed to open-ended questions, would be a solution to that problem.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Rate them on a scale without giving a comment, so they don't say something discriminatory or something that wouldn't be allowed. Yeah.
Okay. So with that,
I'll work with Jessica on that tomorrow, and then I'll have her work with the chair on some of the other logistical issues.
Okay, great. So today's the 4th. We have a meeting on the 18th, a regularly scheduled meeting. And, I can assure you the last thing I ever want to do is have another meeting outside of our normal schedule. But I think in this case, it warrants it. The 20th is a Thursday evening.
Is the 18th a Tuesday?
18th is a Tuesday.
I have 16 on my here.
I think I'm in the right year. Yeah, I'm in the right year.
Yeah.
So what are because I think we need to figure this one, because the key to this being successful is we let the public know that on the 20th they can come meet potential new town manager candidates.
Yeah, unfortunately, 20th, Mr. Chair, I do have a long planned commitment.
Okay. All right.
But the dates...
You would like to join us at this event, correct?
I would like to, if possible. But
I was going to say, for myself, since we're going to have this long interview with them, it's not so important to me to come to the meet and greet, so whatever date works is fine with me.
Okay.
I'm sorry, this is the meet and greet you're talking about?
Yeah, I'm talking about the meet and greet. Yeah.
I think I can pass that.
Yeah, I don't think.
All right. Well, you've been in the interview process so far, so you're there and you're going to be doing the interviews. Yeah, so is everyone else, so are we all comfortable setting the 20th as the date for the meet and greet if we want to attend?
Yep.
I would like to be able to attend that, so it works for me, but I'm flexible. I can do it any other time, so. Does that work?
Works for me. Yeah, I don't have a preference.
So Bernie, if we could talk with Jessica and make sure she's on board with Thursday, the 20th, we would need to make sure the library is available to us that evening and all the other logistics that would go with this. But let's shoot for Thursday, the 20th for the meet and greet for the public to say hello to the candidates.
And I think John has already talked to her about doing the necessary community outreach on that with regards to whatever date is chosen. But you're right, if the library is not available on the 20th, that could be an issue. Perhaps there's another facility in town that could be utilized if that's not the case.
And then I see our upcoming select board schedule has us on Tuesday, July 2nd.
So we will be adding,
With all due respect to everybody, I don't know who picked that Tuesday. Like, why would we do that one? The 19th, the 9th and the 23rd would seem more logical to me, but whatever. So I may have a problem with the Tuesday, July 2nd.
It's the 9th for the interviews, right?
I'm sorry?
We're proposing the 9th.
The 9th.
Yeah, the 9th is when we're talking about the interviews, yeah.
Let's change the 2nd to the 9th.
So that's not a Tuesday, is that?
Well, I think this is going to be 4 hours, folks, so I think this has to be outside of our normal meeting. So, okay, I guess if we hold the 2nd for the meeting and then go the 9th, does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, or if you really can't do the 2nd, you could do the 16th could be, or we can have a 16th meeting anyway, right? Yeah. If we need 2 meetings in July, I don't know.
I'm okay, 9th.
Everybody go to the 9th? Yep. So then, yeah, July 9th, Tuesday the 9th, Bernie, for the interviews.
Correct. That's what we have, right? Yep.
Okay. And then after that, I'm not as worried about the schedule because we can make decisions and do other things.
But we have to hold the 11th, too, for the vote, actually, right? Interviews are the 9th.
Sorry?
Interviews are the 9th, and the vote is the 11th, right?
Well, interview's the 9th, and then if it's a vote on the 11th or it's a week later,
Okay.
whatever, you know, like, I think, like, I don't think we have to get together to make that decision solely, you know what I mean?
For the vote, we would need.
For the vote itself. Couldn't we do that in a regular scheduled meeting?
Yeah, I think so.
So that would be like the 16th, so.
Okay.
So does that all make sense, Bernie? 20th for the meet and greet? Interviews on July 9th? And then deliberation and decision on July 16th.
Okay.
Does that work for everybody?
Yep, it does. Through the chair, one quick question. For the meet and greet, do we want it to be on HCAM as well?
I think it would be hard to do that, just given four candidates and 4 locations in the library.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
I think it would be a little disjointed, so, and
I think the format of the meet and greet, based upon, again, I'm hearing this from, or I heard this from Jessica and Maria before that, and Norman before that, as well as on this, was the idea of having more of an informal, just, allow residents to come in and, as the name says, meet and greet the candidates, speak to them about their backgrounds, their experiences, what they could bring to Hopkinton, and then provide that type of feedback that would be available, as opposed to a more formal question and answer period, so the meet and greet is not really something that could be televised.
okay. All right, so do we have a schedule that works for everybody and a plan in general? Great. So Bernie, thank you for coming this evening. We appreciate your input. We'll see John when he gets back. But I think maybe you, myself, and Jessica can tie out, and then I'll get with Jessica, myself as well, and just make sure we have the logistics organized for those dates.
And I'll be in, as I contact her, if I have any results from all of that, I'll send you off an email that summarizes that. Okay?
Okay, great.
Great.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Item number 13 on the agenda is the Middlesex Sheriff's Office Keepsake Program. The Select Board will consider a memorandum of agreement with the Middlesex Sheriff's Office, MSO, that would permit the Police Department to use the regional pre-arrangement safekeep holding facility as a holding facility for the short-term detention of persons arrested by the Hopkinton Police Department prior to arraignment. Mrs. Lazarus, can you give us a little info on this request?
This is a request of the police department. They've all left. But it's something that will help them when people need to be held for short-term stays before arraignment. It would be go to the facility in Billerica. There is no cost to the town. Town council has reviewed it and the agreement is acceptable.
Do you have a recommendation for the board?
We recommend that this would be beneficial to the community and that you would approve it.
Okay. Mrs. Ritterbusch, any questions or comments?
I don't really have any objections. I just am curious, just for the public too, why do we need this? We don't have space to hold people in the case that we might need to.
Yeah, I wish that the chief was still here. Okay. He could answer that question.
Okay.
You can, if you would like them to discuss it with you, you can postpone this discussion to a later date, if you prefer.
Okay. Mr. Clark.
I mean, no questions right now, no cost to the town. I don't see any glaring issues. It'd be helpful if the police department was here.
Mary Jo.
Well, in reading it, I thought that it's probably entails more than one night kind of thing. And it is a safe keep holding facility. So I'm just thinking that perhaps it's for people, you know, that have problems and things. You know, maybe drug addiction or things, or violent people that need a safe holding facility. I think ours is fairly safe, but you'd have to have someone on duty in the facility all the time if you had a really violent person. So I'm thinking that this is a good idea.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Brennan.
Yeah, I think it sounds like a standard procedure and something that would help us. I just was hoping who would be able to provide more details if we want to understand. This is just for educational, because I haven't seen this before or any type of agreement like this before, and from the look of it, it makes sense. But would that be our police chief or someone from the sheriff's department? If so, I think for the town to understand, it might be a good idea to have a discussion, just a brief update or overview of it. Just my thought, but I'm okay either way.
Until the next meeting?
Yeah, I was thinking just for the town's residents to understand better, and for my education too. That would be a good idea in my view, but I don't have any problem if we think there's a timeline or for any reason we need to do it now.
No, there's no time crunch here.
So I don't recall this from the past. Is this something we have done in the past?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a fair.
Could we hold for now? It's possible the chief could join the Zoom or something too later in the evening, but.
I'm a big believer in making decisions, but only after we have the facts. So I think we should suspend this and postpone it to the next meeting. Have the chief or his designee join us, and let's get a few questions answered, and then we can make a decision. Okay? It seems to make sense, but let's make sure we're clear before we sign on to something we don't know anything about.
Yeah, I agree.
Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
So we'll just postpone Lane to the next time. Okay, with that, let's move to item number 14, the town manager report.
Although I note that I think your 8:30 people are here, if you wanted to take them first for the water and sewer rates.
We have the 8:30 folks here. Oh, Mark's here.
We do.
Okay, great. Oh, there he is. Hey, Mark, how you doing? So yeah, that's fine. That's a great idea. Thank you for that catch. Let's go ahead and do that so we don't keep folks waiting too long. If you would be so kind as to join us. We have about 10 minutes or so set aside for this. So if we could, tonight we're not making a decision. It's my understanding we're not making a decision tonight. We're just getting an update as to where we are and kind of where we're headed, and then there'll be a public, is that a public hearing when we do this?
No, it's not a public hearing. Public meeting.
Public meeting. We'll actually set the rates at a subsequent meeting.
Next time. Next meeting.
Okay, so with that in the time allotment, if we could just be nice and tight on the presentation, that'd be great. So please, welcome. Hi, Carrie.
So Carrie Reed, Director of Public Works.
Eric Hardy, Water Sewer Superintendent, Manager.
Matt Abrahams, the Abrahams Group. Mark is my father, but...
Mark was your father.
It's okay.
See, I'm dating myself all the time up here.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Matt.
Good to see you again.
All right, so we're here just to provide a short overview, see what kind of information y'all might need before the rate setting next time. And I'm going to turn it over to you to give a kind of overview of what we've done.
Sure. So tonight, as mentioned already, is simply informational. There are no decisions made tonight, but we just wanted to update you on where we were with the water and sewer analysis for the upcoming fiscal year of FY25. So in your packet, you should have received a report or a summary that's about 3 pages that summarizes where we are, and I will cover what I consider to be the important points in the memo this evening. So if we go back 2 years ago, when the town first started heavily considering a connection to the MWRA as a supplier of clean water to the town's chief financial officer at the time recommended a 9.5% rate increase for water, but with a caveat that future increases could be higher as costs associated with the MWRA became more clear. So fast forward to 1 year later, which was last year at this time, setting rates for FY24, this board approved a 17.5% water rate increase. Now that was a nice large step towards that direction of being able to cover what we believe to be the cost for the MWRA connection. However, when the board did make that decision, it was with the multi-year plan of a 30% increase for FY25, which is the upcoming fiscal year, and also for FY26. So I just want to make sure the board was aware that when 17.5% was approved last year at this time, we were showing a 30% for FY25 and a 30% for FY26. So now, with our updated analysis for this year, we're actually looking at a number a little bit higher than that. We're looking at a 40% increase on the water side. And we can talk about this evening, I'll try and cover it quickly, some of the reasons behind that. So some of the reasons are this. If we just focus on the short-term, retained earnings on the water side are a little bit on the low side. They were last certified at $277,000. That was a certification that took place last fall. And since then, the town authorized capital expenses out of retained earnings in an amount that was greater than that. So the town actually authorized spending for retained earnings that wasn't available at the time. And we're going to be discussing this a little bit more just to see how we might tackle that. But I just wanted the board to be aware that that took place. On top of that, there were some connections that were planned in town over at Legacy that had been delayed. So some of the connection fee revenue that we were relying on in last year's analysis has been pushed out a few years. The capital plan, which Carrie has worked on since she started about a year ago, is now more robust than it was last year at this time. It's showing about $11.7 million in additional capital expenses in that plan compared to the plan that was the year before. So if we just look very big picture on the water side, and if we focus just on MWRA costs, what we have in our analysis for the construction portion, we're looking at about $2 million annually in debt that is not on the books today. We're looking at an assessment from the MWRA once the town is fully connected, which we know is several years down the road, but we have an opportunity to start planning for that now. So we've included that in our analysis of $2.3 million once the town is fully connected. That's $4.3 million total, and the budget today is $2.7 million total for the water budget. So that would mean that the budget would increase by over 2.5 times what it is today. So with all of those things in mind, we have put together some preliminary options for the board's consideration. Again, nothing's being decided this evening, but we did want to present you with some things to think about. One option, I mentioned the 40% already. If the board were to approve that, then we think at this point, based on our projections, we're looking at 25% increase the following fiscal year of FY26, and then 7% for years that follow that. And just so the board is aware, that 40% for FY25 works out to be at $148 annually for the average residential user. We also have an option 2, which we're showing a higher increase for FY25. If the board was interested in doing more now, that would mean doing less later. 50% year 1, 15% year 2, and then the 7% again. $185 annually for the average residential user for FY25. And then we did take a look at if that $515,000 that I mentioned if the funding source were to be changed, maybe to a borrowing instead of retained earnings, which is something that the town could consider, then we think the rate plan would come down perhaps to 17.5% is what we were showing for option 3, but that would be multiple years of 17.5% under that scenario. 17.5% represents $65 for the average residential user in FY25. So that's a quick summary on water. I'll try and do sewer just a little bit more quickly than that. Sewer is kind of in the opposite financial state than the water fund right now. Retained earnings are very strong. They were last certified at $2.3 million, which is a very strong number. Because of that and the capital plan that was supported by the town at the time, we actually recommended, and this board supported, a 5% decrease for sewer rates the last 2 fiscal years for FY23 and the current fiscal year of FY24. Now, taking a look this year at what the sewer analysis is telling us, we're seeing that sewer flow is a little bit down. We think it might be related to the pandemic's impact on employees physically being in buildings over on South Street and that flow being down. And then also, again, the capital plan has been reworked by Kerry, and it contains much more than it did last year at this time, $8.4 million in capital expenses above what was in there last year at this time. So for option 1 for sewer, again, a preliminary option, but just something to think about. We're showing 5% per year starting in FY25. That's an increase, not a decrease. 5% per year, which works out to be $42 annually for the average residential user. And also option 2 has no rate change, but if the board were to support that, then that means that presumably rates would need to be higher in the subsequent years. And Mr. Chairman, that was all I planned on saying this evening, so hopefully that was quickly enough.
Great, that was very helpful, thank you. Anything else, Carrie or Eric, you want to share? Okay. Quick comments from the board, Mr. Manna?
I don't have any particular comments, but in terms of financials, you may have implied some, but overall, is there any additional burden or at level from financials perspective on our town budget with the rates that we are proposing?
Is there any, what, I'm sorry?
With the rates that you have, is it going to be sufficient to run as the enterprise fund, or there would be subsidiary needed from the town budget, general fund?
Oh, so enterprise funds, which water and sewer are, they're separate enterprise funds, are meant to be self-sustaining. And when we design these rate plans, we ensure that the funds would project to maintain that self-sustaining setup. So we don't anticipate reliance on the general fund under these scenarios.
No impact, yeah. Thank you. That's what I have, yeah.
Very good.
In the past, when we have decided on the water and sewer rates, we had a tiered way of doing it for income and et cetera, age and income and that sort of thing. And I was wondering if we could get that, this is probably a question for the CFO, if we could get that format again so that we could look at the same discounts for different people, different brackets.
I can take a stab at that. So I do anticipate before the setting that you'll have a recommendation from the CFO that provides a little bit more information. The tiers I think you're talking about are actually based on water usage. So higher usage pays a different rate than lower usage, right?
I think we had exemptions.
That's how we based it on, was usage?
It's
Okay.
usage. The tiers are based on usage. But the memo as last year and what I would recommend again this year, that you as the select board can have, what do we call it, a senior discount?
Yeah.
Yep. Authorize annual discount for seniors based on, the exemptions, yada, 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 the typical property tax exemptions. So that's something that's been happening past several years. And I would recommend that you continue doing that. It's not a lot of accounts, but it does provide some relief for certain people that are struggling.
That's a little confusing for me because we did the water and things, and now we're looking at the exemptions again for the school portion of the tax bill, construction only, and I don't know if we didn't really use that as the criteria for setting the tiers, and I can't remember exactly what we did. So I guess we'll have to get the CEO to give us a copy of last year's plan.
Through the chair, I
Yeah.
believe that was the same criteria that was used for the regular tax base was applied to the water. So
Okay.
Qualified for a tax.
Exemption, you got the lower tier, because there were a number of tiers, though. There were like 3 or 4 tiers, so I don't remember how that
Through the
worked.
chair. And that's something we've been doing for several years
Yeah.
now, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, several years. My understanding is that you have to vote on it each year.
Right.
Set?
One thing you mentioned was that 515K, the impact on retained earnings was potentially going negative. Was that right? Is there any repercussions from going negative on that?
No, so I checked with my dad on that, and there's no penalty related to that, but the town would need to make sure retained earnings are positive as soon as possible.
Okay. And then you said with your recommended, there was multiple proposals. The one you guys recommended was at 30, 40% increase?
Yeah, if you asked me for my recommendation, I would probably choose the 40%, yes.
Okay. And what was the average cost per resident?
Under the 40% scenario?
40%, please.
The average cost per resident for FY25 only would be $518 annually, which is $148 above what that user pays today annually.
So the increase is 140.
148 is
Yes.
the delta. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, I appreciate you giving us some options here. Just looking at it, I do think the 40% option sounds better for next year, so we can even it out a little bit. And for people who pay the sewer and the water, I think it might be good to go with the option with the 0% for next year when it's going to be 40% for the water, and then even it out with the 6.5 for the next few years. Just because that's such a big jump of 40% in 1 year for the water, and if we could help them out with the sewer being lower, or even anyway.
From my vantage point, obviously a 40% increase is a huge number for any entity to kind of raise the rates. So I struggle with that, but I understand the challenges we have with water in particular. And this is a little bit off topic, but perhaps not. I think, Eric, you might have been here when we had a water and sewer commission in town. Was that
Correct.
disbanded before you took over, or was that here? During that time? Yeah. I mean, my concern with all this, and it ties to the PFAS thing that Mr. Mannon led us through the other night at the senior center and other stuff that, the town has gotten so big, the budgets have gotten so big, the amount of work has gotten so big, and yet we are the Water and Sewer Commission right here. And if you're here this evening, you heard us talk about 58 other things that had nothing to do with water and sewer tonight. And now the Water and Sewer Commissioners have to sit down and weigh in on a 40% increase. And thanks, Matt, for coming, and we'll do this at the next meeting, but we don't spend a lot of time on water and sewer issues, if we're being honest with ourselves. And I know PFAS kind of drove a lot of different things in the past year or so, but I still think that some form of commission tied to that PFAS effort and other things might be something else that's part of this conversation overall with the community, not specific to the rates this year. I know we got to do it, but if this were my business and I had to go to my boss or I had to go to my clients and say, I'm raising your rates 40%, they would tell me where the door is, and they wouldn't be very polite about it, right? So I think we just have to be sensitive to that and figure out a way to run the business with all that's going on with this whole PFAS thing that has nothing to do with Hopkinton in many ways, but we have to deal with it, right? And getting some more input on how we manage this going forward. Anyway, I'll jump off the soapbox on that, but I think for tonight, I think we have the information that we need to noodle for a few days on. Is that fair for everybody? Is there anything else you guys want to share with us?
No, thanks for allowing us to speak this evening.
Elaine, do you have anything on your mind specific to this?
Nope. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for coming tonight, and we'll see how we can sort this out in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Thanks for hanging in there with us. Sorry we were running a little late there.
And through the chair, Chief Bennett is on to answer the questions about the Keep Safe program.
I'm sorry?
Chief Bennett is on the Zoom to answer the questions about the Keep Safe program.
Yeah, we already missed that opportunity, I think. So, Tom, thanks. We'll take it up the next time around. Now let's go to the town manager's report, unless we have others here. Okay.
I just want to make a comment. Doesn't usually the legislators come and give us a briefing in this time of year?
They do it periodically throughout the year. I don't know if it's a specific time, but they do.
Well, actually, to tell you the truth, I'd like to ask them in and put some PFAS and water questions to them, because we need their assistance. And we're not getting as much as we'd like, although James has been wonderful and everybody's for it, but I think we need to put it to them.
Okay. We can schedule a visit. We can schedule a visit by them.
Great. Okay, town manager report, please.
Okay, first item is the Main Street Corridor Project. I included an update from Michelle Murdoch and Dave Del Torio on where we stand there. Construction meetings are ongoing. Major work that's going to be happening, as you may have noticed, the peeling paint on the poles and other facilities. So that's a problem statewide with the vendor that created those. So they will be coming and scraping all of those and repainting them. And they will go one by one. And that will be happening pretty soon. I think most of the major work like that will be happening after school gets out on the 18th. Regarding the PFAS treatment project, you have a report from Nicole Bratsos indicating that the filtration project is ongoing. It's at the point where they will be working on the testing phase, ultimately leading to DEP approval, and hopefully that will be coming online, sooner rather than later. I know people are looking forward to that. So also on the PFAS subject, there was the forum on the 30th, which was well attended and a lot of good information discussed. And I put in my memo the major, I think, takeaways from those in attendance. So things for the board to consider as it talks about specific groups to look at PFAS and other water quality issues.
Can I, through the chair, ask a question about that one? Yeah, I appreciated having the slides in our packet, but I went on the town website to try to find them on the DPW or Water Department website so I could share them with the public, and I couldn't find them, but if we could get those on there.
Right now, they're on the select board page, I believe.
Oh, see, I was looking in the wrong department. Okay.
At them multiple places.
But I thought it was a very well done forum, and I appreciate it.
Regarding the NWRA project, the 30% drawings have been provided by the engineer, and a progress meeting is scheduled for another week or so. We will have to begin meeting again with the town of Southborough on the IMA, and that should be resuming later this month. Regarding any questions on any of those? Regarding
Just real quick before you move on, back to the Main Street Corridor Project, a request to approve night work. Is that something we need to vote?
It turns out we don't need that. We had thought that the scraping and repainting might need to occur at night, but it turns out it's only two people with one vehicle, so we should be able to detour traffic around that during the day. But if it does become an issue, they may need to work at night if we see a traffic issue.
Glad to hear that we don't want night work. If possible, but yeah.
Okay. Regarding the town payroll update, as you know, payroll was delayed for a little less than 24 hours last week. And I did circulate to town employees today kind of an update on our investigation into what occurred and how we're correcting and preventing that from happening in the future. And so what did happen is, after the town's payroll was uploaded into Munis, it was noticed that one of the department's payroll wasn't posted and some hours were missing. The payroll manager was unable to understand or correct that problem and consulted with Munis support. Actions taken by Munis and/or the payroll manager resulted in the deletion of all town payroll information. And this was happening during the day. After that occurred, 3 finance department employees began keying in all the data manually. They were unable to complete that before the 4 p.m. deadline for the bank for wire transfers. They completed it as soon as they could, and the next morning the bank was able to begin the process of funding the payroll. So thanks to all those who worked really hard on getting that done. It was delayed for less than 24 hours. And then we did develop some corrections and preventative actions based on what occurred. That involves more staff cross-training, more reliance on in-house expertise, involving senior personnel early when critical decisions need to be made. When working with outside vendors and sharing access to our computers, we have to make sure that everyone understands the problem clearly, what needs to be done, and what's being done in the system. We have to ensure that our SOPs are reviewed often and kept up to date. We did make a personnel change last week, and the town is continuing to seek a new payroll vendor. And we will reimburse employees if they encountered any fees from the lack of the expected payroll on that particular date.
Okay, sounds like there were some good learnings there. Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Through the chair, I think you mentioned part of it. Was it a Mooney software system glitch or some lack of training that resulted in, just to understand?
It was not a glitch. We don't know how that part of the department's payroll was missing in the initial occurrence, but it is something that has apparently happened before and can happen from time to time. But the payroll manager had not experienced that before.
With the measures, you feel comfortable going forward?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And then as a staffing update, just continue with our previous ones that we had identified last time. We still continue to source a dishwasher at the senior center. We have advertised for 2 lateral police officers. This replaces 2 of the sergeants who were promoted, 2 of the officers who were promoted to sergeant, so now there are 2 vacancies that we have advertised. Looking for a water technician. Actually, an offer has been extended and accepted, and it was working through pre-employment steps. There are interviews ongoing for a benefits administrator, and also needing more additional per diem dispatchers. It was nice to have one here this evening. And then there's still applications being accepted for full-time dispatchers. And we're still looking for a social worker program coordinator and an administrative assistant at DPW. And the other thing that's not actually on my list that came up today is that, as you know, July 4th is a holiday in which Town Hall is closed, and that's a Thursday this year. Last year, Norman started what may become a tradition or an ongoing thing where we closed Town Hall. So last year, 4th of July was on a Tuesday. So we closed it the Monday and the Wednesday, giving town employees, a longer time off period, and thanks for all the hard work that they've been doing. And so this year, July 4th is on a Thursday, and the recommendation, if you think it's a good idea, is to close Town Hall on that holiday, but also on the Friday afterwards and the Wednesday before. So just something to consider, and if we do that, I think we should know as soon as possible so that we can let people know.
Would there be any contractual issues with that? Some folks, have the holidays spelled out. I would assume they are spelled out in the contracts for those that are under contract.
Yeah, obviously it doesn't apply to, say, public safety personnel, but last year we were able to work out those intricacies, and we were able to make that happen. It'll keep people whole.
On the last point there, I don't know if any others have any thoughts on the idea of an extended holiday around the July 4th weekend. Mrs. Ritterbusch?
Yeah, I think it's good to reward employees if they're able to get the work done that needs to be done at the beginning of July. I think that would be a good thing to do. So maybe if your senior team talks it through and feels like all the work can get done. I mean, a lot of offices close on the Fridays in July anyway, so it'll just be one extra day.
I love the idea for morale, as long as people are getting paid that week, right?
Yes, yes, they will.
Okay. Joe?
Well, actually, I think it's a nice little pat on the back for the people in the town hall who work so hard for the town, who give all their time and work very hard for us. And I think it's just would be a nice thank you.
Yeah, I echo the same. I think it's a nice gesture and it's a good reward to give to all that are working hard, dedicated, and providing the service. One thing I would also, and I'm sure you'll handle that, is to manage the services and the notifications appropriately. So, there's no disruption, but I'm sure you have that in place already. So all for it, yeah.
So as I understand it, then we would close Town Hall on Wednesday, the 3rd, Thursday, the 4th, and Friday, the 5th. Friday, the 5th is an absolute quiet day. No one's going to work on Friday, the 5th. Even if they say they're working, they're not working, right?
Yeah.
That's fine, that's fair. But Wednesday, the 3rd would be a change in services in that Town Hall would be closed. You're not coming into Connor's office, you're not coming upstairs to the building department, anything like that. So, is that okay?
Yeah, I would promote the idea for, being able to spend quality time with the family and with all that, just planning it ahead, as Brian mentioned, so there's no disruption. And also the residents are well aware that they don't plan any particular service or waiting for any license on that day. That's all.
It's also the biggest vacation week of the year for the state of Massachusetts, so there will be fewer people in town.
I mentioned I wasn't going to be around on July 2nd for that very reason. I think it's a great idea. I think, the community's had a little stress of late, and let's take a moment and take a breath, give everybody a break, take some time off and enjoy the summer weather. It's very short-lived here in New England, so I love the idea, and you're the town manager, so you'll figure it out.
Great, thank you. Ed, I appreciate it.
I have a question, though. Considering we're speaking about the 4th of July, and Ken in his 2 minutes earlier was talking about the Horribles Parade. Have they come to us for a parade permit?
It's on your agenda for the next meeting. It's on your agenda for the next meeting.
It's a next meeting, okay.
Anything else for the town manager?
No.
Item number 15 on the agenda is liaison reports and board invites. I'll start by saying I saw the email come in for the liaison reports. I was able to open it and go through it real quick. I don't think it's something we can get into at 9 o'clock tonight as far as who gets what. I don't have strong opinions myself on the liaison reports, and we'll defer to all of you to pick and choose as you please, and then we'll try to figure it out. So maybe some kind of just formal write-up or note back to Elaine as the ones that you're interested in for the next year would be the first step, maybe?
I think Mary Jo and I already submitted ours.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we sent ours in to Vasuna.
So if you want to do the same, and I don't know, Mr. Mann, if you had a chance to do it or not.
I have not.
Okay, but, my history with liaison reports and liaison assignments in general is, and I would always make it very clear, as a liaison to a committee does not mean I will attend that committee's meetings. I just can't do that. No one can, right? But I would be available to any committee that I'm a liaison to if they need me to reach out and say hello. But just to be very clear about the record, once we set this up for me anyway, I will not be going to every committee meeting that I'm a liaison to. It's just not possible. And I don't think you need to. I think, if they have an issue where they want the board's engagement, they could certainly reach out. But they all do great work. It's just physically impossible, mentally impossible, and with work and everything else, it just doesn't make sense. Anything else on liaison reports anybody would like to discuss tonight?
So I had,
Go ahead.
the only thing I wanted to add was I didn't see DPW on there. I didn't see the Public Works on there as having a liaison. Is that because Carrie got hired last year? Was there a gap? I'm just kind of curious. I don't see it in the list.
We don't have a liaison to every department?
Not every department has a liaison. It's
Mostly
different
boards and committees.
that have a liaison, not the departments.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
No, nothing else.
All right, we'll come back to
I
that
did
at a
have-
future meeting, Elaine, but, sorry?
I did have a couple. Yeah, but I just wanted to mention that I went to the Eagle Scout Court of Honor last night for Troop 1, and I think we have citations for them, and we'll invite them to the next meeting. And then I listened to the planning board meeting last night. It was the first time they had met since the MBTA vote failed at town meeting. And so I guess they've been talking with town staff about when to do a special town meeting, because we have to comply by December, and Connor was going to be so busy with elections in October and November that the choices would be September or December. So September seemed pretty quick to try to get something. So I think they're kind of targeting December, so we should all be aware of that and getting a timeline ready, I think.
Yeah, I think December makes a lot of sense.
Through the chair, I also just wanted to notify that there's an interfaith program in the new mosque this coming Sunday at 2 to 3:30. Coming Sunday at 2 o'clock. Oh, an interfaith program at the new mosque. Yeah, so everyone's welcome to attend. And Congressman Jim McGovern is going to attend, and some of the town leaders. I'll be attending. I think, Amy, you're attending. Another point I wanted to just clarify, based on the PFAS open forum that we had, I think in one of the upcoming meetings, we would want to discuss that as well as the Water Commission thoughts that you have. So collectively, we can make some way forward.
So, great segue. I have under item 17 for future board agenda items. We have those listed, and we'll be chipping away at some of these as we move forward. I was going to add this evening, establish a Development Economic Council charter and composition as a future agenda item. And then perhaps, if I'm stealing your thunder a little bit, establish some version, and I don't know what that is, so we could just get it on the agenda and discuss it then. Some version of a water and sewer commission or PFAS commission, whatever we want to call it, however we want to focus it, we'll get to that. But I think we should have that in there too. Is that all right?
Yeah, I think that would be a good discussion. We can incorporate the ideas and have a clean water commission or something to
great.
Expand the charter accordingly.
I have two more when you.
Yeah, it's on the email list. It's at 2 o'clock on Sunday.
Does anyone have any other future board agenda items?
Two more to mention. Our next meeting is the night before Juneteenth, and we usually would hoist the Juneteenth flag outside of Town Hall. So if we could all come to the meeting a couple minutes early, we could do that, if that works. We've done that the last few years. And then also just to mention the Pride Parade is coming up this weekend at the HCA, if everyone would like to attend.
Great. Anything else? Any other future agenda items?
I had one. We've obviously had a resident that's come for multiple public forums asking about kind of with the release of information with the Louder Mill, just what our response has been to avoid that. You know, just any process in place, I believe, was the nature of the question, but like how information got released, what we're doing to prevent it. Like, is that something that we can dig into?
Well, it was investigated by the Worcester DA, and they found that there was, it actually happened at the attorney's. They were supposed to redacted everything, and it didn't get redacted. I think they said the secretary redacted all, and it was given to us and given to the public as a redacted issue.
Let's do this, like with public forum, let's get it on the future board agenda items list, and we can have the conversation then, because we're not posted to discuss it tonight. But I think we can put that on the list.
Thanks. I just want to know.
Anything else? No. Anybody else?
Yep.
Okay. All right. With that, I think, correct. Oh, one last thing. July 2nd, 2024, like that's the meeting date?
It's a default first and third.
There's some tone there, right? I get it, right? I'm sorry.
It's the first and third Tuesday, but you can certainly change it.
You guys want to do the July 2nd meeting, or you want to move it?
I want to move it.
We wanted to do July 9th, no?
Well, July 9th, we have the interviews. And then July 16th, we're hoping to make a decision on the town manager, right?
I believe someone's coming for a parade permit.
Sorry?
Someone's coming for a parade permit that would be timely, right? Or no, they can come in June. Okay. Yeah.
You know, sometimes the board only has one regular meeting in July and August. You could do that.
That's kind of what I remember, but I don't want to shirk my responsibilities here. We can figure it out. Let's just leave it as is for now, but okay. All right. With that, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move the motion to adjourn.
Second.
And it's seconded. So moved by Mr. Mann, seconded by Mr. Clark. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Do we have anything to sign tonight?
Yes.
We are adjourned. Thank you very much.